Since 2007, Wisconsin-I has filmed countless hours of state capitol coverage to provide invaluable access to government actions, all available to watch live and on demand. Without Wisconsin-I, Wisconsinites would lose an important source of transparent and unbiased accounts of public policy and politics. Give today to secure the longevity of balanced, unfiltered civic programming. You can do so at wisi.org/donate or text WISI to 44321.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Senate Committee on Utilities, Technology, and Tourism hearing. We'll go through just a couple of the brief rules. I just asked that everybody keep their phones quiet. You don't have to completely turn them off, but just please keep them so that they are not disruptive. There's a lot of stuff going on here in the Capitol today, so there will be people, including members, coming and going. So please bear with us as we continue to work through that. And at this time, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Bradley.
Here.
Senator Fine.
Here.
Senator James. Here. Senator Radcliffe is excused. She has other things going on. Senator Smith.
Here. All right. So today we're holding a public hearing on 3 bills. We will be taking them in the order that they were listed: SB885, SB951, and then SB975/AB968, its companion bill. So up first will be SB885, digital asset staking and the state's securities laws. And we'll call up one of the authors, Representative Nalen. Morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairperson Bradley and members of the committee. I do have testimony here today. I'm going to kind of veer off script and just kind of talk about it at a very high level to try to keep things as simple as I can and try to understand what this bill is all about and what we're trying to accomplish. Also, take questions. I don't have a computer science background, but if I'm willing to answer all the technical questions you may have. But just there are some people that participate in or trying to participate in staking that will come next that might have, if you do have some more technical questions in nature, they might be the perfect people to ask. But at the heart of this bill is about blockchain. It's about securing and building out blockchain that's going to be vital for Wisconsin's digital and financial infrastructure in the future. Blockchain is used by a lot of different small businesses, entrepreneurs, artists, musicians, as a tool to remain competitive in a changing landscape out there. Now, to build and secure a blockchain, right, to make sure it's secure, there are two ways of making sure to build it and secure it. One is the one that most people are familiar with, and that is mining. And that is used by a lot of different computers solving high-level, complex equations to make sure the blockchain is secure. The other one is called a proof of staking, or like a staking model, that people put up their digital assets to secure a blockchain. They stake them in a blockchain. And when they do that, they're providing a service, an IT service that the Security Exchange Commission has defined in guidance as a service, not as a security, but as a service, and they can get paid those rewards for that service they're providing to secure the blockchain. In Wisconsin, we're one of only 4 states in the entire country that doesn't allow for individuals to receive income or rewards from their IT service that they provide to stake and secure a blockchain. So there are 46 other states that allow it without any problems. There has not been any consumer issues or any problems within staking in these other states. So we're not by any means one of the first states to try this. In fact, we're falling behind. Wisconsin, we have lost over $4 million in revenue. This is taxable, earned income revenue that people have lost out on, over $4 million from the fact that Wisconsin doesn't allow people to receive income or rewards for providing this IT service known as staking. That's, by some estimates, one company alone, I believe, that will testify, Coinbase has said there's been over $400,000 in missed taxable, like that Wisconsin has not received through taxes because we don't allow staking. So this is real money that people are not earning because of our outdated and archaic rules around digital staking. Now, we will have a lot of different people that will testify about why and how they provide this service. But again, this is earned income that we are losing out on. The SEC has said specifically through guidance that this is an IT service. It should not be treated like a security. And we're one of only 4 states still in the country that is treating this like a security. So we're missing out on revenue, and there are people leaving the state. There are people taking their business elsewhere. There are investors that are moving away from Wisconsin because of this specific rule. So this bill is very much just only targeted at allowing for digital staking. It does not touch on anything else other than just putting in law that we do allow for digital staking as one of the ways of securing blockchain in Wisconsin, and people are able to receive that revenue that is taxable that they're currently missing out on. We will keep entrepreneurs, we will keep small businesses, we will keep artists, we will keep different creatives that want to use the blockchain here in Wisconsin. And unless we do this, we're going to continue to fall behind, and people are going to continue to leave Wisconsin.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you for putting that into plain English, right? With a lot of the bills that we're going to hear today, it's quite a bit outside of the norm for most people.
Sure.
So having a plain English explanation should be very helpful. So questions from members of the committee? Yes, Senator Fine, go ahead.
Is this staking, is this something that's up to interpretation at DOR in Wisconsin? Or is it in statute that it can't be?
Yeah, it is kind of open to interpretation, and they are interpreting it as security.
That's what
although the security SEC, the federal SEC, has came out with guidance saying that that's not the case. It is a service in their most recent guidance So we're one of the only states, and I believe there were 9 states previously before this guidance came out, and a lot of them had dropped their lawsuits because of the guidance that it came out to clarify that no, this is actually an IT service.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk will call up the next speaker.
Next up, we have Lorenzo Cruz representing the Wisconsin Bankers Association.
And then who's on deck?
On deck will be Ashley Gunn from Coinbase.
Good morning. When you're ready, go ahead. You make sure to hit your button.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right. My comments are pretty brief, so I'm just going to go ahead and read them. Good morning, Chair Julian Bradley and members of the Senate Committee on Utilities, Technology, and Tourism. On behalf of the Wisconsin Bankers Association, thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding SB892, SB885. Wisconsin Bankers Association is the state's largest financial trade association and represents banks of all sizes located throughout Wisconsin. Our members serve individuals, families, small businesses, and communities across the state. We have a strong interest in policies that promote consumer protection, financial stability, and a level regulatory playing field. AB 892, SB 885 would exclude digital asset staking and staking as a service from coverage under the state's securities laws. While the goal of encouraging technological innovation is understandable, the bill raises concerns regarding consumer protection and regulatory consistency. Staking activities can involve monetary transaction, third-party service providers, and expectations of return. Similar characteristics in traditional financial markets are subject to regulation to ensure transparency, manage risk, and protect consumers. Treating digital asset activities differently based solely on their technological form may create gaps in oversight and result in an uneven regulatory framework. The Department of Financial Institutions currently has the authority to evaluate financial products and services based on their specific facts and circumstances. Creating a statutory exemption would limit that flexibility and may reduce the state's ability to respond effectively to emerging risks as digital asset markets continue to evolve. Maintaining appropriate regulatory oversight benefits both consumers and responsible participants in the digital asset industry by promoting clarity, trust, and market integrity. For these reasons, the Wisconsin Bankers Association respectfully asks the committee to carefully consider the implications of this bill and to oppose AB 892, SB 885. Thank you for your time and consideration. Take questions.
Sure. Thank you for your testimony. Yeah. So Rep. Nayland just stated that the SEC has defined this as a service. Is it your contention that that is not an accurate depiction, or is it just a differing opinion?
I think it's fair to say, Chair Bradley, that the FCC has recently, or their corporate division of their staff has provided guidance. But I think it's also fair to say that there's division between the commissioners there. I think there are folks that still believe that this is and should be treated as a security. So while there may be guidance out there at the federal level that views this as a service, we support the department's position here under the state law that treats digital asset staking as a security. And obviously that issue isn't under litigation right now. We believe, as I've stated in my testimony, that this looks to us like a security. It's a monetary transaction, there's a third party involved, and there's an expectation of return. So I guess there's a difference of legal opinions at the federal level, but I think from our perspective, we're in agreement here that we believe that regulation is required. I think from our perspective, those folks that are talking about leaving the state, I think, as I understand it, they don't have to necessarily leave the state. or that revenue wouldn't necessarily leave if they would just simply register like we all do under the securities law.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Yes, Senator Smith.
Thanks for bringing some testimony here. So I do all my banking online, and so I consider that a service. So help me walk through how this is different.
So you're going to test my knowledge in terms of service between that as versus security. So again, as I said, we view this piece not as a service but as a security, just like some kind of investment contract, meaning that money is flowing, a third party, in this case, kind of similar to a broker dealer, is handling that transaction, and then ultimately there's an expectation of return. So ultimately, I think that falls under the security, not a service, like an ancillary service. But I don't know if DFI is going to be here. They're probably a little bit more equipped legally to get into the nuances between the distinction between services and a security. But from our perspective, I guess we respectfully disagree with those folks that are trying to portray this as a service versus a security.
All right, great. I'll ask them too. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Senator Fine, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 46 other states allow this. There are banks in those 46 other states. Do they, assuming you're a part of a national organization, how do they respond at that level, having 46 states doing this already?
I can't really comment on the 46 other states, truthfully, Senator. I haven't had a chance to research that. I can only speak to Wisconsin and how our industry feels about the necessity to have regulation around this kind of transaction, which, again, we feel should be regulated.
Okay.
Additional questions from members? Seeing none, thank you. Clerk will call up the next.
Next up, we have Ashley Gunn from Coinbase. On deck will be Spencer Smith.
When you're ready, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Ashley Gunn, and I lead the state and local policy team at Coinbase, America's largest crypto platform and publicly traded company. At Coinbase, we don't just accept regulation, we advocate for it. We hold 46 state money transmission licenses, including one right here from the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institution, and are regulated by the CFTC and SEC through various subsidiaries. We believe the crypto economy needs clear rules of the road to protect consumers and foster innovation. More than 52 million Americans own crypto, including roughly 16% of Wisconsinites, which is almost 1 million people of the state. This is not a fringe technology. It is already being integrated into the financial system through real-time payments, small business finance, and secure digital infrastructure. Wisconsin should be looking for ways to participate in this innovation, not placing itself at a disadvantage, which is exactly why I'm here today. I will spend the remainder of my testimony discussing SB885 and why it matters for Wisconsin and its citizens. But before turning to the legislation, it is important to explain staking. And to understand staking, we must first understand the underlying crypto technology. Cryptocurrencies are digital units of value stored on a decentralized database called a blockchain. A blockchain is similar to an accounting ledger, but is distributed across the world rather than centralized under one control of a singular entity like the traditional financial system. This means no company, country, or third party controls the blockchain, and anyone can participate in its governance, making it both widely accessible and with immutable records of transactions. The blockchain grants an unprecedented level of security, speed, and accessibility for the new generation of financial services. Certain blockchains get built through a process called staking. Staking is when an individual locks up their cryptocurrency to help a blockchain network run and stay secure, and in return, the individual earns rewards. Anyone can self-stake their assets, but the process can be technical and more involved. Therefore, companies like Coinbase often provide their users staking as a service, which is a technology infrastructure that enables users to participate securely without giving up control of their assets. Similar to how Amazon Web Services provides cloud infrastructure or Airbnb provides a home sharing marketplace, Coin provides a staking infrastructure that enables users to participate in the service. In each of those examples I just gave, each company I just described supplies the technology and coordination layer while customers retain ownership and control of the underlying assets. Now, turning to the legislation. Senate Bill 885 is a narrow, responsible measure that clarifies staking as a service is not a security. Since these services are not securities, there is nothing to register. Misapplying securities laws in this context risks chilling innovation far beyond crypto. Wisconsin is currently an outlier. As we've discussed, 46 states permit staking, including the rest of the Midwest. Additionally, the SEC dropped its staking case against Coinbase with prejudice, and federal guidance confirms these services are not securities. Furthermore, this bill does not limit the state's ability to combat fraud or enforce consumer protection laws. Notably, the current DFI action against staking is based solely on registration theory, not fraud, and there has been no allegation of harm to Coinbase users in Wisconsin or elsewhere. Because Wisconsin lacks this clarity that the bill would provide, Wisconsinites have missed out on more than $4 million in staking rewards, which is taxable income and has gone to residents in other states. That's not consumer protection, that's consumer exclusion. In summary, the bill confirms staking as a service is not a security, aligns Wisconsin with 46 other states, preserves consumer ownership and transparency, keeps Wisconsin competitive in the digital economy. This bill does not deregulate crypto, eliminate fraud enforcement, or weaken consumer protections. Ultimately, this legislation ensures Wisconsinites are not left behind. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for being here. So the person testifying previously respectfully disagrees and believes that this is a security, and I wrote down there's monetary and there's an expectation of a return, so he believes it qualifies as a security. Can you address that concern for this committee? Because I think Senator Smith was also asking about the differences, and frankly, I believe that's clearly, obviously, a part of the issue here. So if you could address it from your perspective, that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Absolutely. First of all, I'm not an attorney, so I am happy to get our attorneys to come in and talk to you more if that would be of use. We're happy to provide that. But this gets to the heart of the matter that's being discussed through some of the issues of why we can't provide this service. Ultimately, what I will say is, at the end of the day, Coinbase does not offer securities on our platform. We offer cryptocurrencies, and part of this cryptocurrency that we're asking for is staking. You're being able to stake your assets for your crypto, and we're asking for that to be a service. So there are technical things that we can have a longer conversation about, but Coinbase doesn't offer securities, and we want this to be a service.
Sums it up. Questions from members of the committee? Can we get a copy of your
course.
testimony?
I can send that after I'm done, of course.
Perfect. Additional questions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is Spencer Smith, followed by Tiara Nicole on deck.
Good morning.
Good morning. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hi. My name is Spencer Smith. I'm a resident of Wanakee. So if you just look over northwest of Mendota, that's where Wanakee is. Let me just share a quick story about my freshman son, Dominic. That's okay? He loves soccer. He's a freshman at Wanakee High School, and when the kid's not playing soccer, he wants to participate in some capacity. And I don't mean by being a spectator. He actually wants to be a referee as well. And the cutoff for being a referee is the age of 13. Now, when you're on the field, at least half the crowd is cheering for you. When you're a referee, no one is cheering for you, except one person, his dad, who's there. So when he puts on this jersey, he's opening himself up to massive criticism for that hour that he's refereeing a game. And you may think to yourself, well, an hour, that's not so bad. As a lawmaker, I get criticized 24 hours a day, right? But what he does is he provides a service on the field, knowing that there is a nominal reward that he's paid. And it's actually not too bad for a 14-year-old kid to get $25, not too bad. But at the same time, he's subjected to this criticism that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Because he hears it from the players, the coaches, and you know who the worst one is? The parents. Always. Always the parents. I am flabbergasted by these games that I watch where he's the ref to hear what comes out of an adult's mouth about my son and his performance on the field. After he was just a few games in, I said, Dom, you hear this criticism on the field, right? He said, yeah, I hear it. I go, from the players, coaches? He goes, yeah. I go, what about the parents? Yeah, I hear a lot of what they say. Well, why do you do it? I'm just curious. He goes, well, Dad, if I didn't do it, who would? And I'm super proud of this kid to begin with, but he even further codified how incredibly responsible he is for doing what he does. Now, what does this have to do with digital assets and blockchain and staking? Nothing really. I just wanted to share the story. No, it's a really good analog, really. What we're telling Wisconsinites right now is you believe in the ethos of this ecosystem, and you can fundamentally participate. You can take on responsibility by staking your assets to ensure the sanctity of the blockchain. That's all that validators do. They take their assets, they pledge it, and they say, I promise to tell the truth. And if you don't, you lose your assets. There's almost close to a million individual validators. Coinbase is one of them, through which individuals choose to stake their assets to promise to tell the truth. Now, if we look at this economically as well, that's a big part of the American ethos, right? We take a responsibility, we get rewarded for that responsibility. But then also, we're knowingly, as a state, foregoing a massive set of income that we could be accruing. We hit on the $4 million idea, but this is a compounding asset class. Meaning if you own stock in Alliant Energies or We Energies, there's something called a dividend reinvestment program, which means they take their profits as dividends, and you can choose to purchase more of that stock, meaning it goes up in value, which means you have more of that. That's exactly what happens when people stake their digital assets. They get more of the thing that they already believe in. So this $4 million number is a snapshot, but if we allow our residents to accrue and compound this, that will be an annuitized stream of income we as Wisconsinites will realize. We already know that on a federal level this is okay to do. So if we look at it one of two ways, okay, there's either do we allow this because we want to allow people to take responsibility? Most likely, yes. We want people to be self-sovereign, take on that role. But then also, do we want to knowingly forego this income that we could have otherwise that 46 states are getting and we're not? That's another choice. I am very happy to answer technical questions if you'd like. I'm super into this space, so please do that, or I can just get out of here and let the next people go. It's up to you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions? Senator Smith, go ahead.
My only question is, are you here to testify as yourself or for an entity that you represent?
Thanks for asking, Senator Smith, who you have a great last name, by the way. I am just here as an individual. I'm not represented by anybody.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Hearing none. Thank you for testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tiara Nicole from the Wisconsin Blockchain Business Council, Wisconsin chapter of SB885, followed by Michael Adam on deck, representing Adam Aerospace.
Thank you for being here. When you're ready, go ahead.
Good morning. I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to testify. Just to give a little background about myself, my full name is Tiara Nicole Williams. I do go by Tiara Nicole. My artist name is Taninelet. And so I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I use blockchain within my work for verification purposes and authentication purposes. I am a founding member of the Wisconsin Blockchain Business Council, but I'm also the chapter lead of SB885. SB885 is a global educational organization that onboards women and non-binaries to Web3 and emerging technologies. So just to give you a little bit about my testimony, as an artist, and an entrepreneur working in Wisconsin blockchain community, I've seen how emerging technologies can expand access and opportunity. Crypto just isn't a financial tool. It is a creative and economic lifeline for people who have been overlooked by traditional systems. One of the most important tools is staking, especially staking as a service, which allows people to earn rewards on digital assets without needing technical expertise. And this matters for artists like me. Blockchain is helping creators share work, build audience, and earn income in new ways. Models like curation staking let supporters back the artists they believe in, creating shared value for both the creator and the community. But Wisconsin is blocking these opportunities. While nearly every other state allows staking, our regulators have taken a restrictive approach that prevents everyday Wisconsinites residents from including artists like myself, small business owners, and young innovators from participating. Now, the SB Bill 885 would fix this. It restores clarity, aligns Wisconsin with national standards, and ensures our communities aren't left behind. This isn't a partisan issue. It's about fairness, competitiveness, and giving Wisconsinites access to the same tools available across the country, and not only that, the world. Wisconsin deserves to lead, and our artists and our innovators deserve the chance to participate in the future of finance. So let's move forward, not fall behind. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Yes, go ahead, Senator Smith.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate that you're here to give us your angle on this. So could you give us a little more detail how this is important to you as an artist? How does it work in your business?
Yes, so when people come to buy my work on chain, I'll receive that in the form of a cryptocurrency. But the beautiful thing about that, once I receive the payment from the sale, what happens is I can actually go onto the chain that my work is on to stake. And so I'm providing a collateral to the chain, and the chain is using that for validation. So it's a part of the cybersecurity portion of the chain, in which my cryptocurrency that I've just earned, I placed it back onto the chain as collateral, and it runs as a validator. And so if there was ever any situation where fraud would come up, I would lose my assets that I've placed up. So I think me being able to come and add to the validation and the security of the blockchain, I think is very necessary. And I think the way that it was created, the architecture of the infrastructure, the fact that we all collectively get to participate in the security of that architecture, I think is amazing.
Thank you.
Additional questions from members? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Michael Adam from Adam Aerospace, and then last up on deck will be Russ from Wi-Fi Wireless.
Morning, when you're ready, go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm giving my opinions today, personally, but my name is Michael Adam. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Adam Aerospace. I've also been on the Board of Directors for Marquette's Business School and Finance Department for the last decade. At Adam Aerospace, we de-risk data by verifying it in real time from its original source to its final use across all domains, so sea, land, air, space, and cyberspace, without the need for any connectivity, which is an important part, but we don't need to go down that route. We primarily service the aerospace, defense, and commercial space markets, with our largest customers being the United States Air Force, the United States Space Force, and the Air National Guard. On the commercial side, we mainly service satellite operators, ground station operators, rocket OEMs, and launch companies. Most of our work in the commercial space market is around contested logistics for space operations. So we're a little bit different than some of the things you're hearing today, but at our core, all of our products use blockchain. So our core product, which we created 5 years ago, is called Zenith Zero. It reads large data sets, assigns it a cryptographic signature in real time, And then that signature is sent over to our private permission blockchain on Amazon GovCloud ISLES 5 and 6. Yes, we can handle CUI information. And then we manage that. We manage the signatures, we manage the access, and we manage and provide the trust layer for our government and defense and space users. So what does that have to do with cryptocurrency? Absolutely nothing. In fact, for our business purposes, we stay as far away from crypto as absolutely possible because it tends to confuse our government customers and our military leaders, and sometimes just gives a unnecessarily negative opinion about what we built and what we created. That being said, cryptocurrency and what we do in data verification have that same foundational layer, that same railroad tracks that this technology is run on, and it's all about trust and transparency. I'm in favor of staking for the state of Wisconsin. I don't feel like technological innovations should be held back because of semantics or some misunderstanding. I truly believe that it is a service. I mean, one could say that Adam Aerospace itself provides some type of staking service. Now, there might not be any monetary transaction there besides for the contractual contractions we have with our DOD or DOW customers. But we do provide some of those similar services. As far as the monetary rewards, I mean, we're here in the state of Wisconsin. I feel like, these monetary rewards are no different than Kohl's Cash. So to me, that's really the equivalent of what we're talking about here. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last up for this bill is Russ from Wi-Fi Wireless.
Warren, when you're ready, go ahead.
All right. So I appreciate this chance to be able to speak in front of Chairperson Bradley and the committee. So I work with Wi-Fi Wireless. What we do is we provide IT services. A lot about this bill we're discussing today. What we do is we allow cellular devices to seamlessly jump onto Wi-Fi. And we've been working with the Dane County Airport for several years. So if you're flying through today, you've ever flown through there, you turn on your Wi-Fi, you'll see our service. We've been working with them for several years. So why I'm here to speak, for this change is that I think this makes Wisconsin much more competitive. From my point of view, it's very simple. I'm managing working capital that's coming from cellular carriers like AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon that are paying me to help them fix coverage issues. I also have customers who are paying me to fix cellular coverage issues. And I'd like to take that capital and I'd like to stake it because, to be blunt, the money that I make from staking is far superior than what I get today from most financial services companies here in Wisconsin. And most of my peers would not do business here because they're like, it's a competitive disadvantage to do business here in Wisconsin and to form their company in Wisconsin if they want to use any type of crypto-related financial services. In my case, I am forced to basically take my working capital and use the services that are available here in Wisconsin today in order to stay in compliance. And I have looked at what was mentioned earlier today saying, just go register it. The time and expense doesn't make any sense to invest that when I can literally go to a neighboring state and have this up and running in 15 minutes. It makes zero sense. So my view is very simple. We should do this to become more competitive, to make financial services more competitive and serve entrepreneurs like myself who want to move quickly and provide the best services for their clients and their customers, as well as help grow their tax base on the number of employees that they have. I do have a background in crypto, very familiar with it. I can answer any technical questions or other questions how we operate.
Awesome. Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you. That concludes the testimony on SB885. If the clerk will read the registrations, please.
Registered in support is Senator Rachel Cabral Guerrero.
Excellent. All right, so we will move on in the agenda to Senate Bill 951. And I don't see the author. Yeah, there she is. All right. We'll ask the authors to come up. Good morning. When you're ready, please go ahead. Senator Drake, I don't think your microphone's on.
Oh, there we go.
There
Let
we
me start
go.
over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Chair Bradley and members of the committee today. My name is Senator Dora Drake. I have the honor of representing the 4th Senate District. I also serve as the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus and a former member of the Governor's Council on Financial Literacy. I'm grateful to the committee for giving Senate Bill 951 a public hearing today. SB 951, also known as the Wisconsin Innovative Network Bill, also known as the WIN Bill, is a critical piece of legislation that will ensure Wisconsin leads the nation in financial technology innovation while putting people first. Right now, lawmakers across the country are approaching cryptocurrency and digital asset policy through the lens of expanding the market, focusing on what new technologies can do and how they can generate economic growth. We see this primarily on the federal level with the Genius Act and also through other processes to possibly use digital assets as collateral for loans. Our neighboring states, such as Illinois and Minnesota, are already introducing legislation or signing legislation into law regarding this emerging industry as well. While those are important, we are not spending enough time on something equally critical, making sure the public has the tools, education, and financial literacy necessary to engage responsibly in this space and gain access to long-term wealth. The reason why cryptocurrency is so popular amongst all backgrounds is you've heard a little bit about that already. It's because it's a decentralized system where anyone, regardless of income, can make investments that could lead to significant economic opportunities. It's a system that is not controlled by the most wealthy and privileged, but by a community of innovators and investors who make it thrive. And you've heard several of them speak today. According to Stand With Crypto, an advocacy group, about 14% of Wisconsin adults own cryptocurrency already. In addition, at one point, Wisconsin's pension system also invested in millions of dollars in a Bitcoin exchange traded fund, ETF, for those that are watching online. However, without accessible information, we risk the promise of this financial technology by leaving the very people it's supposed to empower behind. Everyday people and families seeking to build generational wealth, first-time business owners, investors, and small business owners face a landscape that's filled with complexity, potential scams, and security concerns. We cannot call it innovation if it is not safe, transparent, and inclusive. The WIN Bill addresses this gap by creating the Office of Financial Technology Innovation within the Department of Financial Institutions. This office will do the following. First, it provides public education and financial literacy. It will serve as the first taxpayer accountable source of reliable information for Wisconsin residents exploring cryptocurrency and innovative financial products. This resource will make financial literacy a priority so people can invest responsibly and protect themselves instead of relying on chat rooms and other unreliable sources for new investors. Second, it protects consumers while encouraging innovation. By anticipating risks and providing guidance, the office will ensure that entrepreneurs and investors can engage in this growing market with confidence. Third, it promotes business growth and economic opportunity. By streamlining regulatory support, providing guidance to businesses, and helping entrepreneurs navigate this space, we can lower barriers to entry and foster innovation while keeping consumer safety at the forefront. Last but certainly not least, this would position Wisconsin as a leader in financial innovation. By establishing a pilot program for entrepreneurs to test different financial products and providing incentives for industry leaders, this encourages talent to base their operations in our very state of Wisconsin and encourages national and global economic opportunities for our state. Cryptocurrency and financial technology are here to stay. There's no question about that. But we need education and consumer protection. If passed, I believe the Wisconsin bill would center Wisconsin as the Midwest hub for financial innovation. As Wisconsin grows its tech economy, our communities are equipped with the knowledge and resources to fully participate and thrive. I urge the committee to pass the WIN bill and position Wisconsin as a national leader in responsible financial innovation. Let's create an ecosystem where everyone has the tools to engage safely, businesses can grow, and our state can lead in both innovation and consumer protection. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. I have a couple of questions here. So obviously we've talked quite a bit about this as you were working on this. I don't want to discount it, but I want to say at least the last year, roughly. So you mentioned some of our neighbors. Where are they in the process on this?
Yeah, so in Illinois, they've passed legislation that just focus on regulation. There's not really any type of discussion about education. In Minnesota, it's the same where they provide regulations, so in that way, we've heard from folks in the previous bill the need for entrepreneurs to need guidance and opportunity, but still safeguards. But and I believe that in Minnesota, there is a credit union that's looking into using stablecoin as a source of revenue right now. But those are just some of the things that our neighboring states are doing. Outside of those two, I don't believe that anyone in the Midwest is actively looking at how do we provide regulations that provide consumer protections and education to the general public so everyone can learn our state.
Is there a national example? Is there another state maybe outside the Midwest that we can look at just to see how the program is functioning today?
So I know that when drafting this bill, and I can give a little history to this, I was looking into this issue a couple years ago, knowing that this was an emergency industry, much to learn, even on my end. And so we were looking at states like Arizona and Colorado just to get some ideas. But this would be unique because it has an educational component.
Excellent. Who's doing that now? Is there anybody that is providing, to your knowledge, as of today, that is a centralized, trusted source of education on?
The only place where people can find out information is a place on Discord, I believe, but there's no centralized place for people to really learn unless you're in the industry. Many of the business owners that I've had the chance to speak while drafting and working on this bill shared with me their own concerns of wanting to stay in business in Wisconsin, but due to unclear guidance or regulations, having to choose between staying here or leaving. And in that, they've also fell into, unfortunately, scams where they were scammed out of $10,000 to $50,000. And so there's no real centralized place where people can get education about this industry.
Sure. Have you, obviously, we've had conversations as chair of this committee and talks of trying to get this bill before us. Have you talked to the administration? Have you talked to the other cabinet agencies? Obviously, we're going to have a new administration. The governor's not seeking re-election, so it's going to be different. I don't recall seeing anything like this in this year's budget. Is the goal to get it into next year's budget? Can you just kind of walk us through?
Yeah. So initially, in a previous draft with the reiteration, we did have conversation with the Department of Financial Institutions. They had some concerns. And the bill that's before you today is a combination of things where they feel like they would be good with the support that's provided as well as some framework with that. So based on our conversations, I believe that DFI would be okay with this.
Okay, thank you. I'll pause my questions here. Questions from members of the committee? Okay, Senator Smith, then Senator Fine, go ahead.
So, me? Okay. So, actually, you stole my question, but that's okay. Because I'd like to dig a little deeper as to where people currently are educated about crypto, and is it safe? Is it a safe space that they can trust?
Yeah, and I believe the person that's going to be testifying after me can speak a little bit more to that. But what I've shared earlier is that there's no real centralized place to learn. Like, there's different platforms, obviously, that people can go and learn about. But when it comes to getting into this space for the first time as an investor or a business owner, it's really based on who you know, and sometimes, those contacts aren't always acting in goodwill. And that's where, unfortunately, we've seen business owners not get their fair share and wanting to build their own capital or wanting to stay in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So then, to follow up with is there a, I think about with our food or with something else, we have a stamp of approval knowing that this is safe, and is there something like that that people can trust that when they are working with a cryptocurrency bank or whatever you want to call it, that they can trust that that's got that stamp of approval?
To make sure I answer your question correctly, in terms of just in general when it comes to working with different entities, not necessarily, no. But there are, like I said, different platforms and online platforms that obviously are verified, through the things that they have to do, I'm sure with regulations from our federal government. But when it comes to other aspects, no, there's nothing that's clearly defined, and I believe the person coming before me, after me, worked with me closely on this because he is an expert in the industry as well. Maybe can talk a little bit more to the questions you have.
Actually, I have a follow-up to your question. That was one of the questions I didn't ask, was just, can you give the committee, and then we'll get to you, Senator Fine, an overview for how you would picture this office working, right? So to Senator Smith's point, like that, and I'm stealing Dan's question now too. And I see Senator James has the same question. But that's why we do the hearings, right? This is literally why, and I know, again, we've been talking for, I think it's about a year on this one. But if you could just walk us through, in your mind, right? Because obviously once that person is appointed, they're going to have their own vision. But statutorily, how would this office work? Would there be a stamp? Like if there's like we had the bankers here, if the bankers were signed up to be those that would provide information on crypto, is there a level of education that they would be required to obtain, or is there a certification they would be required to obtain? We have one of our great groups here, AARP is here. Obviously, they have a strong organization. If they were to provide information to their members, would there be something that they would stamp or say, hey, this is state approved, right? So I love the idea of having centralized information in such a, I get it, but how do we make sure the information that is being put out to everybody is actually the information, not just ChatGPT?
Right, exactly. And it's a good question. So ideally how I see this be an office that would, again, it'd be a pilot program, right? So we'd have the office, there's a pilot program that would provide guidance for business owners, to go through the stuff that they need to do. Obviously, there's a debate about securities versus commodities. They would have to register, get a license, but then the fees that they would use would go back to help some of their beginning operations. In terms of stamp of approval and accreditation, I can only assume, I believe that DFI would want something like that in writing. I think one thing, as we were discussing this piece of legislation, is that our Department of Financial Institutions is more so, what's the word I'm looking for? This is something new that they haven't encountered before. And so I think as we are creating this office, there would have to be continued conversations also to ensure that whatever information is put out, we would know it's accredited and it's verified, making sure that the public knows what those things are. And I do believe that the people that would be hired would have to be either trained or be experts in the field, in a field that's emerging and it's growing. Before as legislation can catch up, I think it's imperative that we have the people that know it best to be at the helm of this.
That's the second part of my question is, one person obviously would have their own opinion. And as we heard on the previous bill, we have experts who have a differing opinion. So how do we ensure that we're not just picking one person's opinion? So again, this is the beginning of the program, I understand, but I think it would be important. Two things that you mentioned. Number one, the revenue coming in. Would this eventually be funded through program revenue? Is that your goal?
Yes, that would be the goal.
Awesome. And then number two, I don't like to spend money. So if we can, number two would be, I'm sorry, Senator Fine. I'm absolutely going through both of their questions, and I apologize, gentlemen. And then number two, as you work on this for the next budget, potentially, maybe a council as opposed to just a specific office or a committee. That way we can have experts from each of their fields that may be able to weigh in and say, this is how we see it. And then, there's a council that would provide a generalized recommendation versus having a set office. It might be just a different way of viewing it, and it also might be significantly cheaper. So I will stop there. I know Senator Fine has been
Fair enough.
waiting.
I'll just add to that, this is something that's new and nuanced, so I think there's plenty opportunity to continue those conversations to develop this as well.
Yep. Okay, Senator Fine, go ahead. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He mentioned he doesn't like to spend money. I don't like to create new letterheads within government, offices.
Okay.
So, but when DFI was set up, there was no cryptocurrency. So it's something we got to think about. The Office of Financial Technology and Innovation. Would this cover other things coming down the road, or is it just dealing with cryptocurrency?
Well, no, so.
Because we don't know what's down the road.
Well, exactly, and I think this is just opening the door to that. We've heard a lot about cryptocurrency. We even talked about fintech. We've heard about blockchain, and who knows what might come down the line. I think having something established would be a proactive step for us as a state to recognize this is an industry that's growing versus trying to catch up.
Okay. I think it was $2 million in this bill and 5 positions. And you mentioned it's a pilot program, so if it don't work, it just goes away, or it gets off on its own 2 feet, self-funding?
Yeah, so the thought behind having a pilot program is we know in doing something new, we want to see if it works first. And so the thought process, exactly, so the thought process was to have a 2-year pilot program to see, 1, the interest, 2, to see if it's viable, and maybe if there needs to be tweaks, so that way there is room to come back and make adjustments need be, if it needs to be, maybe some other mechanisms where it can be self-funded, or other measures where it's supporting business owners and investors while still providing the public education it needs.
So we heard in the previous bill that there's roughly 900,000 people in the state of Wisconsin that dabble in cryptocurrency or actively do things in cryptocurrency. Would this be a clearinghouse for them to get educational materials on how cryptocurrency works?
That'd be the hope. I think if there's something that we can expand on, I think anything that expands education around this issue would be critical for Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Thank you, I know. Okay, Senator James, I was going to apologize because I know I took at least 2 of your questions. I watched you wave, so go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Senator Drake. I just want to clarify, is it $2 million or $4 million?
It's $2 million.
Okay. Is there
2 million. Oh, 2 and 2.
So $4 million. So the $2 million, I think, was for each year, given to cover the pay for the 5 members.
So it's $4 million total.
$4 million total.
And then, so back to the title, the Office of Financial Technology Innovation would have its own administrator, or would the Office of Credit Unions fall underneath that as well?
That is a good question. We have not encountered that. I think we can follow up with more questions.
Okay. And then with the position authority, it says that the pilot project positions would be 5. But then in the future, it says something about increase authorized FTE positions for the Department of Financial Institutions by 7. So is that in addition to the 5?
No, if I remember correctly, we started off with the 5, and to the point of after the 2-year pilot program, if it would end or not, I think they were anticipating that we might have to have additional staff, given the response of people that would want to use the office and the resources.
Is it 5 or 12 or 5 or 7 or?
Maybe let council try to clarify.
Let me just locate all of these provisions. Yes.
So I believe it would be 12 positions because it authorizes 7 FTE positions for the new Office of Financial Technology Innovation, and then separately 5 GPR positions for the cryptocurrency pilot project positions.
So it'd be 5 GPR, 7 over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a total of 12.
Thank you.
That's all I have for now.
Thank you. When you were drafting this, I don't want to answer for you. I just know because we talked at length because of your request that we at least hear the bill so we could start the conversation. But I believe the 2 and 2 was a result of the potential of this being enacted if it were to be done at the end of the last fiscal year, so for the next 2 budgets. And I just want to go back to one of the points you made because I think it's important for us, like Senator Fine, right? Not only do I not want to spend money, I don't want to grow government, certainly not adding letterheads, but you are open to a commission, right, to bring in additional voices and experience. And I think that might be a way that through recommendations, through additional conversations, we might be able to address a whole lot of the concerns that you're addressing here, especially in a pilot program.
Yeah, I'm open to what that pathway looks like. I think the ultimate goal that I would want to make sure I communicate to this committee is that we've had business owners and talent that has left Wisconsin and set up their businesses somewhere else. And we've had people that have lost opportunity. As long as we're providing the public to the education to the public about this new industry as well as support for our small business owners, I think would be the ultimate goal in whatever that pathway would be.
Thank you. Senator Fine.
2 questions. The Assembly did not take this up, right?
No, this would be the first time.
So knowing that, sounds like a great idea for a study committee.
That's what I was alluding to, Senator. You're taking that from me. That's I said commission, but
Payback.
It is.
Payback.
It is. But I bring this up because this is right when Senator Drake asked, can we still hear it even though obviously the Assembly's done. In this committee, the Technology Committee, this is one of those that it's just like we should be having the conversation similar to data centers. So I appreciate the work that you've done and for your persistence in making sure we got this on the agenda so we could have this discussion. Additional questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me today.
Next up, we have Christopher Perceptions, and that'll be our last speaking in favor on this bill.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bradley, Vice Chair, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Christopher Perceptions. I am a husband to a loving wife, father to 3 children, a native son of Wisconsin, published author, collegiate educator, and a founder who has built companies recognized on stages from the United States to the United Kingdom. For over a decade, I have operated at the forefront of the digital asset industry. I've advised countless founders, written a best-selling book on blockchain technology, appeared in publications such as Bloomberg, USA Today, The Defiant, as well as various television networks. I want to ask the esteemed committee a question. How can Wisconsin win if our brightest innovators feel forced to build elsewhere? During the golden era of my previous ventures, Wisconsin saw zero benefit. I did not incorporate here. I did not hire contractors here. I did not pay business taxes here. I formed companies in Wyoming, Florida, North Carolina, Delaware, and even the country of Estonia. Why? I felt like I was welcomed and I was given clear rules of the road. In Wisconsin, my home, I felt like a liability. I operated with foreign entity status for a short season, never truly comfortable doing business in a state that had no framework or office to help me navigate the regulatory landscape for my industry. The situation exemplifies capital flight and brain drain, a phenomena that is happening daily. I know the risk of this industry better than most. I've been hacked before. I've had to learn through the pain of loss and being scammed as well, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've seen the highs as well as the lows, yet I am still here. In finance, people perish for a lack of education, consumer protection, and regulatory clarity. When Wisconsin ignores this industry, we do not stop scams. We just drive away the legitimate businesses that would protect consumers. We leave Wisconsinites vulnerable while chasing away companies that could educate and empower them. This is why I am honored and humbled to serve as an advisor to State Senator Dora Drake for this pioneering legislation that we call the WIN Bill, also known as Senate Bill 951. It has taken us several iterations and several years to get Senate Bill 951 to this point because we wanted to make sure we got this right for Wisconsin. But what kept us going back is we saw what Wisconsin is beginning to see now. The economy is transforming into a digital one. Senate Bill 951 builds a partnership between the state, the people, and the industry. It is a comprehensive piece of legislation that seeks to position Wisconsin as a leader in the digital asset industry. It establishes a framework for the responsible development and adoption of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, while also providing consumer protections and promoting economic growth. By establishing the Office of Financial Technology Innovation, with confirmed support of the DFI, we create a front door for innovation. This is the signal every founder is waiting for, and it serves as a touch point for the industry to work with the state. It also serves as a resource for consumers to learn about the industry and how to protect themselves from scams. SB 951 moves beyond speculation to utility. It mandates a pilot to help Wisconsin businesses actually use cryptocurrency as a payment, preparing our small businesses for a digital-first global economy. SB 951 provides tangible support on guidance on licensing, potential fee waivers, and grant funding. Along with this, education is built into the fabric of this bill because education is the best consumer protection. Wisconsin needs a platform, institutional infrastructure, consumer protections, regulatory clarity, and a framework that serves as a global signal. And this is what Wisconsin gains by adopting Senate Bill 951 into law. My newest venture is Jubilee Labs, a next-generation financial protocol designed to automate stewardship with institutional scale. We have launched Jubilee Cloud, an operating system for faith-based organizations that integrates ethical on-chain financial primitives, such as the Jubilee US Dollar Index and the Jubilee Bitcoin Index, to optimize the stewardship of endowments and assets. I want to headquarter my new venture right here in Wisconsin, not in Delaware. But to do so confidently, I need and we need the regulatory participation of partnership and pilot infrastructure that only SB 951 provides. There is a short window of time to act and to empower, protect, and inspire the next generation of Wisconsinites. This is a $2 trillion plus industry that often feels like it moves faster than the speed of dollar circulation. Global variables, national competition, and state-level regulatory uncertainty are creating the perfect storm for capital flight. Now is the time to support SB 951, also known as the WIN Bill, before it is too late. Thank you for your time. God bless you, and God bless Wisconsin.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Senator Fine, go ahead.
And thank you for your testimony. You mentioned you did business in multiple states, and I think it was Estonia. Mm-hmm. Do any of them have offices like this?
Great question. So Estonia, since you brought it up, it is the world's most digital country where you can do everything according to government within roughly 20 minutes on your phone. So they're beating out Dubai. They're globally competitive and pioneering in that regard. They do not have an office exclusively for financial innovation and technology. They just rolled out the red carpet for technology, and all sorts and kinds are coming to Estonia to incorporate.
Okay. But no one in the States?
No one in the
States. That you're aware of?
The closest that I've seen, and spending some time in Miami, helping things as it relates to Miami-Dade College with educational programming and things of that nature, had a chance to speak with the mayor's office. They were pioneering something similar, but it's not like a de facto go-to place for education. It's for business owners that are interested in incorporating. They'll help you get the ball rolling a little quicker, but not for the sake of education. It's just for business sake.
Thank you.
I saw, when you were talking about Estonia, I saw some of our experts that testified earlier, their heads went like this to confirm, so that's interesting. Additional questions? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The clerk will read any additional registrations on this bill.
Registered in support is Buddy Julius representing Coinbase.
Excellent. All right, we will move on to our final bill of the day. It is Senate Bill 975 and Assembly Bill 968, which is its companion bill. And we will call up the authors, Senator James and Sam Hope from Representative Snyder's office will be joining Senator James as well. Gentlemen, when you're ready, feel free to go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair Brad, the committee for hearing testimony on Senate Bill 975 today. As legislators, we're working to balance protecting our constituents without violating their virtual kiosks as crypto kiosks are marketed regular cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They look and operate with operators will have businesses like gas stations. Regrettably, clear that these machines are different than the coin counters and bubblegum dispensers we are used to seeing as we walk out of the store. These kiosks are almost entirely used for illicit activity and have generally flown under the regulatory radar. One of the most common uses of these kiosks is the transfer of money during scams. As a law enforcement officer, I've seen how devastating these scams can be and just how difficult the money is to recover, if there is any recovery. It is common practice for scammers to direct their victims to deposit money into a crypto kiosk and send it to them, rendering it all but untraceable. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, received almost 11,000 complaints about the use of these kiosks, with reported victim losses approaching 250 million nationwide. As staggering as these numbers are, they are all the more notable considering they represent a 99% increase in complaints and a 31% increase in victim losses from 2023. Recent notices from the U.S. Department of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, also warn that these kiosks are commonly used for modern money laundering of drug money, thanks to their ability to circumvent traditional financial institutions. They can try to hide too from state and federal regulation and deposit money that disappears without a paper trail into the pockets of criminals. SB 975 does not ban crypto kiosks, but it does place meaningful and targeted safeguards to protect our people. These protections under the bill, as amended, are requiring a crypto kiosk operator to be licensed as a money transmitter with the Department of Financial Institutions, capping user deposits into crypto kiosks at $1,000 per day, requiring crypto kiosks to display fraud warnings, requiring that these kiosks not operate as ATMs or be within 5 feet of an ATM, and requiring operators to verify the identity of a depositor before completing any transactions, requiring that crypto kiosks not operate as ATMs. Hold on a second. Requiring that an operator provide live customer service for scam prevention during all hours in which their machines are operable, requiring the operator produce a physical and electronic receipt of every transaction, requiring the operator provide a full refund of the transaction if within 30 days a customer notifies DFI or DOJ of a fraudulent transaction, notifying law enforcement in the jurisdiction in which the machine is located of new users at a crypto kiosk. Reviewing this list makes me incredulous that many of these things are not already required when we know how dangerous these machines can be. There's no world where crypto kiosks should be able to operate outside the purview of DFI. There's no way we should allow these transactions to take place without verifying the identity of the depositor. I won't get into all the details right now, but it is our duty as legislators to stop the massive levels of financial fraud and exploitation that these kiosks are currently enabling. If I can be blunt, there is a reason that the only 3 entities that were registered against the bill are these machines and their lobbyists. This legislation is the moderate middle ground path based off the success of states like Iowa. The extreme step would be to ban them outright, as Indiana is on the verge of doing, waiting for governor's signature right now. Our amendment has raised the daily transaction limit to 1,000, up from the original 500, and removed the cap on transaction fees. This bill is a compromise, and it's ready to be signed into law. I'm here to protect my people back at home, and this bill does just that. I want to extend my appreciation to Representative Schneider and Sam for their leadership on this great piece of legislation, and I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Pat couldn't be here today.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Unfortunately, Representative Snyder couldn't make it today, so he asked me to speak on his behalf. Just wanted to reiterate that this legislation came out of the Speaker's Task Force on Elder Services earlier this session. One of the big things that task force did focus on was scams that target senior citizens, and crypto kiosks are far from the only such scam. But they are an incredibly new and pernicious scam targeting our seniors. Just going to go down our testimony. I'm not going to recap the legislation or what the senator already said, but I wanted to note, included with Representative Snyder's testimony, is a testimony that Mark Grenz, and Jonathan Solomon, who co-founded Digital Mint, submitted. Digital Mint was a crypto kiosk operator founded in 2014, but they no longer operate any crypto kiosk business at all. Digital Mint discontinued those operations due to their internal data that found the business to be essentially completely illegitimate. Their full remarks can be seen attached, but wanted to highlight why they explain these machines are favored by scammers and other criminals. Cryptocurrency kiosks, however, have become uniquely attractive to fraudsters for several reasons. First, kiosks accept cash, an untraceable payment method that cannot be reversed like credit cards or bank transfers. Second, kiosks provide immediate access to cryptocurrency, allowing fraudsters to quickly move funds through multiple wallets before victims realize they have been defrauded. Third, the physical nature of the kiosk creates a false sense of legitimacy that victims may not associate with purely online transactions. Fourth, and perhaps most critically, the cryptocurrency kiosk industry has historically operated with minimal regulatory oversight and compliance standards, creating an environment where fraud can flourish. And just wanted to reiterate that this legislation is not targeting all aspects of cryptocurrency. I know this committee heard legislation earlier today that focuses on other aspects of cryptocurrency. This bill would not touch any of those methods of converting U.S. dollars into cryptocurrency. It would only affect these specific kiosk operators and machines that already are all over Wisconsin. One of the refrains that crypto kiosk operators do make is that the majority of scams involving cryptocurrency at large do not involve a kiosk. This is true in the broad sense of just the amount of scams that are out there, and when you include, massive scams like the FTX scandal that, what was it, billions or hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars. Those numbers really eat up a lot of that pie, but they will obfuscate and not acknowledge the fact that the vast majority of the transactions that do occur on these machines are illegitimate. Again, the Iowa Attorney General found that 98% of these transactions were fraudulent. You see similar figures out of other states across the country, even other countries, and Washington, D.C. Additionally, earlier this month, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts filed a lawsuit against one of the largest crypto kiosk operators, one of those who opposes this legislation, which really highlights why these companies cannot be trusted to self-regulate as they wish, noting that Bitcoin Depot's employees had warned the company years ago that almost all of its large transactions were related to scams. Instead of fixing the issue, Bitcoin Depot reduced the questions that it asked customers, so it found out about fewer scams. Bitcoin Depot also heightened the bar for designating transactions as scams, which allowed unknowing scam victims to continue using Bitcoin Depot's kiosk and sending money to scammers. Additionally, I think it's important to point out that these scammers are not, you're just run-of-the-mill people all over the world trying to take advantage and make a few bucks here and there. These are incredibly sophisticated and high-level criminal networks. I'm going to note a report released by Congress just earlier this year found that on-chain analysis reveals that funds originating at U.S. crypto ATMs frequently flow into the wallets of Southeast Asia-based Chinese language money laundering networks, also known as CMLNs. which serve as key intermediaries in broader global scam infrastructure, noting that crypto ATMs remain critical input for scammers targeting older adults who are often instructed to convert cash into cryptocurrency at these kiosks before funds are quickly transferred. In this context, actors leveraging crypto ATMs as both payment conduits and a loci of fraud increasingly depend on these Chinese money laundering networks to launder and integrate stolen funds into the wider financial system, illustrating how traditional elder fraud has evolved into a transnational crypto-enabled ecosystem. Additionally, Congress notes that these Chinese language money laundering networks represent a significant U.S. foreign policy threat and concern, specifically noting their ability to launder vast sums of illicit proceeds of Mexican transnational criminal organizations implicated in fentanyl and trafficking. So these are just not some of them are simple scams, but these are highly sophisticated criminal enterprises that are targeting elderly folks in Wisconsin in part because they know we don't have protections. And additionally, they are specifically targeting people to use these crypto kiosks because of the ease and structure that they currently operate under in our state.
All right. Thank you for your testimony and for your work on this bill. Questions from members? I didn't think we'd probably have any. I was looking at the co-sponsorship, and it's overwhelmingly a bipartisan bill. So I assumed there might not be any questions, so I just want to reiterate for you, Senator James, and if you could pass on to Representative Snyder, who couldn't be here, the work that's been done on this and gathering the consensus necessary to provide the level of consumer protection that is your goal is much appreciated by this committee. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Up next, we have Sean Becker, and I'd also like to bring up Scott Goldberg, both representing the Badger State Sheriffs and Wisconsin Sheriffs and Deputy Sheriffs Association. On deck will be Aaron Fabrizius of AARP, as well as I'd like to bring up Raj Sukla, also representing AARP.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. When you're ready,
Good
please
afternoon,
go ahead.
Chairman Bradley and the rest of the committee. Senator James, thank you so much for your hard work on this bill. We really, really appreciate it. Sean Becker with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. I'm here representing not just only the citizens of Wood County, but the Badger State Sheriff's Association, the Wisconsin Sheriffs and Deputy Sheriff's Association. I have Lieutenant Scott Goldberg, one of my colleagues, who oversees our investigation division. We're obviously in very, very strong support of this bill. We've been dealing with these scams for over 3 years now. And a lot of facts were already brought up. But what was happening locally, and this isn't exclusive to Wood County. This is happening all over the state. But once our first victim came in, like I said, just over 3 years ago, an elderly person, a senior that had just lost $9,000 of their hard-earned money. And this is something new to us. We didn't even know that these kiosks existed. So working through the investigation, we found out that the cash was still in the machine. So we looked at it, that cash is evidence. And then we connected with the owner of the kiosk and didn't really receive any cooperation at all. So we wrote a search warrant. We recovered the money, but they still wouldn't cooperate with us. And we returned the money to that victim. And that was going to be the way we handled these situations. Our search warrants were signed by judges. They were okayed by our county attorney. And we knew that prosecuting somebody, since this money would go out of the country, would be really, it wouldn't happen. So this is the only way we can make our victim whole. And that worked for a while, until maybe a year or so into it. And we did share our template of the search warrant throughout the state so other agencies could do what we're doing. And some agencies did. But what do you think happened? The companies got onto us. And they sued us because of the way our tactics were. And we felt very strongly that this was the only way we were going to be able to give that victim their hard-earned, their life savings back to them. So we had to change our tactics, and we still, when we have a scam like this, we will serve the search warrant, on that company. They do cooperate to some level now because they'll open up the machine and give us the money back, but the first time they didn't, and we had to destroy the machine. But now we hold that cash at the Sheriff's Department, waiting for some legislation so we can return it legally back to the victims. Another point that I want to make is working with these companies. Initially, they weren't cooperative. Then they started to do refunds across the state with a catch. They would refund victims money, but they would keep their fee. And the fees, as we talked about, are plus 20%. And a lot of these scams aren't just a couple $1,000s. We had one in one of our townships in Grand Rapids for $60,000. So if you could get that returned, the company's keeping that user fee of 20%. That's a lot of money. So we still kept going the direction that we were serving the search warrants. Then we started getting threatened by these companies. If we continue using the search warrants, they will not refund anybody any money in the whole state of Wisconsin because of what we're doing. So that should tell you how well that they want to work with us. And it's very frustrating for us to sit and sit down with a victim and tell them that they lost their life savings and it's sitting in a machine where we want to get it back for them. A lot of the facts were already brought out about what's happening. This is a huge priority for all law enforcement in Wisconsin. Like I had mentioned, I'm representing the Badger State Sheriff's Association, the Wisconsin Sheriff's and Deputy Sheriff's Association. Other people speak on this bill. You're going to see or hear from people that lost their life savings, lost money because of these scammers. And they continue to victimize our seniors because they have saved up their life savings. And this is a way that we can regulate these ATMs, these crypto ATMs. We're not against cryptocurrency. The two bills previous to it make a lot of sense. But this is something that we have to do something to protect people. And it's very passionate for us because when you deal with victims over and over, it hurts. Bottom line, it hurts. If you have any questions about some of the investigations, feel free to ask both of us.
Yeah, my name is Scott Goldberg. I'm a lieutenant with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. I oversee investigations. So, like Sheriff Becker said, when this first started about 3 years ago, it kind of took us by surprise. It was a new scam. Scams come and go, right? But this one was unique because of the amount of money. So, a lot of times you'll hear of other scams come out, and someone's got scammed out of $500. But now we're talking, and the first one was $9,000. We've had them up to $60,000 in the county. So we're talking not $500, not $1,000. Now we're talking someone's life savings. So as we kind of worked through this, and Sheriff Becker kind of explained our process, how we initially would immediately refund the money after executing the search warrants, then we started holding the money. As I prepared today to kind of talk to all of you, I had to remember, because we've been advocates for this bill from day one, and I had to remember why we're doing this, and it was because of the victims. And I have spoken to many victims, our deputies, our investigators, as we kind of went through this process over the 3 years, and 3 words always came up with the victims, and the first one was fear, trust, and embarrassment. So with that fear, the first thing that came to that is always talked about is the fact, will this happen to me again? Sometimes these scammers threaten the individual, so they're fearful. Is there actually some validity to that? And then the other part of the fear is their financial insecurity. Now that they've lost this money, how do they pay their health bills? How do they pay if their washing machine breaks down? The trust portion of it, there's a unique story I'd like to share. Is we had a victim, $20,000 was taken from her. I wanted to connect with her after this took place. I initially called her on the phone. She was reluctant to give me any information because she was fearful of who she was actually talking to. Even though it said, I'm sure the caller ID said County of Wood, she was so fearful that she was going to be scammed again. She wouldn't even talk to me on the phone. I agreed to go meet with her. Well, I'm an investigator, so our vehicle is unmarked. So I didn't really think about that. So I show up in her driveway. She continues to be fearful because I'm not in uniform. I was probably wearing a polo and a pair of khakis. Until I actually showed her my credentials, she calmed down. And she explained to me, she's lost trust in everything. She's lost trust in picking up the phone, getting her emails because of this. And so the fact that she's just living in this fear and doesn't trust anybody, it really affected me that way, as knowing how this was affecting victims. And then that embarrassment portion. I feel like we're probably only getting a fraction of the scams reported to us because there's a lot of embarrassment. Because a lot of people out there are like, well, how would someone fall for this? Or in this one case, one of the victims said to me, I was fearful to say anything because of the embarrassment, and I didn't want to tell my kids because my kids may think I can't handle my money anymore. Because the victims in these cases are traditionally elderly, and they don't understand the technology. With that said, I do want to touch a little bit on the investigation portion, because it takes up a lot of our resources. So we have a computer, so Wood County, we're probably average size county in the state. We're not, Iron County, and we're not Milwaukee County. So we sit in between. So we only have so many investigators to actually look at this. So there are some technology portions that you need to investigate these, but a big part of it's just simply time. So we write search warrants because when someone buys or is scammed, in this case, you get a digital wallet. We need to figure out who the ownership of that wallet is. Well, what we found right away is these scams move very quickly. So that wallet, one of our investigators advised us that during the investigation, they found that wallet moved hands 3 times in less than 10 minutes. We can't write the first paragraph of a search warrant in 10 minutes. We also learned that these wallets are moving outside the country on a regular basis. I just touched base with one of our investigators today to find out when the last one, when we tried to serve a warrant outside the country, and it was somewhere in the Caribbean, no response. Because once it goes outside the country, they don't respond to our warrants, and they don't have to. So it really handcuffs law enforcement to do a full investigation. So basically, at that point, in most cases, those people are just out the money forever. The scams also, just to touch base, it was brought up earlier, are not just scams. These cryptocurrency kiosks are also used for moving drug money. It's really easy for a drug dealer, instead of carrying large quantities of cash on them, where if law enforcement has contact with that and it's connected to drugs, we'll seize that money because it's illegal money. But if they move it, if they're going to make a drug deal and need to buy a big purchase in Chicago from central Wisconsin, it's much safer to do that at a cryptocurrency machine. So the other part of that is cleaning money, and then the other part of that is it's very easy to move money outside the country. So if somebody wanted to move money outside the country, it's very easy to do that. I just want to say I appreciate you guys listening to us about this important topic, and really hope that this moves forward into law. With this law so well written, I believe it'll pretty much eliminate this. This is a threat in our community.
Awesome. Well, thank you for what you guys do, first of all. Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members of the committee? Senator James.
Well, thank you both for being here and advocating for our Wisconsin people when it comes to this issue. But I want to definitely raise a point. It's not only our seniors that become victims to this. When I was up giving testimony, I didn't get to share my own police report that I took October 25th in Cadott about the young family that was scammed out of thousands of dollars And it's literally, the phone call started at about 1 o'clock. And they called me. I made contact with them at 5:35 p.m. And it was like 55 or 7,500 with the crypto kiosk deposit. Then they tried to do they did another thing with Venmo, and then they tried to get another 5,500 for a third-party Privacy Act violation through the Department of Justice. So that's how quickly this stuff goes, and you're out those thousands of dollars. And this was a young family, a mom and a dad with 2 kids. So everybody can be scammed at a moment's notice. And I guess what are some of the top investigations that you've had with the subject? Because this one started out as he failed to appear for a jury trial, and he thought the jury trial was canceled, and he thought, I'm in trouble, so he thought there's some legitimacy to this. But what are some of the other content cases that you have?
Sure, and I think I've probably heard them all at this point, but some of them are, we were doing an audit on your computer and there was child pornography on it, and we need to make sure this is cleared. We've heard this is the IRS, and you didn't pay your taxes and you're overdue. We've heard we are your bank. So let's say you're at BMO Bank and they figure out which bank you were with. They call as a representative of them and say, there's some fraudulent charges on your bank account. We need you to come in and take that money out and secure it so nobody else takes any more money. I don't want to say we've heard them all because I'm sure there's one out there we haven't heard, but that example you gave is definitely the jury duty one is very common, but we do hear a lot of different types of scams.
You guys see the new one, at least that's popping up via text more recently, is the tolls. Do you see that? I see all the heads nodding. I see that one not. Okay, I just wanted to, you mentioned, because I think that's one that we have to try to remind people of, that is not real. If you're getting those, so if anybody's watching on Wisconsin Eye as well, we try to put out public service announcements, and the police departments are doing a great job trying to let people know, that is not legitimate, but it is concerning, especially if you drive into one of those horrible toll states like Illinois. So,
Just a side note.
Just a side note. Additional questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you. All right, up next we have Aaron Fabrizius and Raj Sukla representing AARP. Then on deck will be John Turk from CoinFlip.
Good afternoon. When you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Bradley and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify before you today in strong support of Senate Bill 975, Assembly Bill 968. I'm Aaron Fabrizius. I'm the Advocacy Director for AARP Wisconsin, and I'm joined by
Raj Shukla. I'm the State Director with AARP Wisconsin.
So AARP Wisconsin has nearly 800,000 members across our state. Our mission is to ensure that adults 50 plus get to choose how they live as they age. A big part of our mission is financial security and consumer protection. That is why we are in such strong support of SB 975, AB 968 today, because it will allow Wisconsin to join 17 other states in adopting common sense safeguards for crypto kiosks, sometimes called crypto ATMs, which now sit at nearly 700 gas stations, convenience stores, and other retail locations across our state. Simply put, this bill will prevent Wisconsinites from losing their life savings to criminals who are exploiting these machines to steal from hardworking people, especially older adults. Unlike transactions conducted through regulated financial institutions, crypto kiosk transactions occur with virtually no consumer protection or fraud prevention measures in place. There is no cooling off period. There's very little friction in the process to slow coerced payments and fees that are often high and hidden. Federal agencies have repeatedly flagged these machines as high risk. and Americans reported more than $333 million in losses to kiosk scams in 2025 alone. And we know that number is significantly underreported, right? And that is according to newly released FBI data. And as you heard from Sam, investigations from both the Iowa Attorney General and the Washington, D.C. Attorney General found that over 90% of transactions at certain kiosks were linked to scams. And here in Wisconsin, law enforcement continues to see widespread harm, including a Windsor woman who lost $15,000 to a kiosk scam just a few weeks ago. These scams typically begin with a call from someone impersonating a bank, the government, or a law enforcement agency claiming the target's bank account is under attack or that they missed jury duty or maybe did not pay a toll. The victim is then coerced into withdrawing cash from their financial institution and depositing it into either someone else's or a newly created digital wallet, often called a federally secure lockbox by the scammer, but it really is a crypto ATM. And then the crypto ATM is placed in a trusted local business like a neighborhood gas station, grocery store, or convenience store. Once the victim arrives, the scammer coaches them step by step. They're often on the phone. We have a supplemental handout with our testimony from the Washington, D.C. lawsuit. All of the victims were on their phone being coached by the scammer to then feed their U.S. dollars into the kiosk, which immediately converts it into cryptocurrency and sends it into a digital wallet controlled by the criminal. The funds then move rapidly, as you heard from Wood County, from one anonymous wallet to another, often leaving the country within minutes. Throughout this process, scammers deliberately leverage the good name of local businesses to make transactions feel legitimate. Clerks and owners who had no part in the crime are left in the impossible position of dealing with distressed customers, reputational harm, and follow-up from law enforcement. There's one gentleman who manages a grocery store in Port Washington, and he literally sprints across his store to intervene for kiosk scams. He has personally stopped 3 kiosk scams. We've also heard a lot of stories from Quick Trip clerks who have had to intervene. This bill helps businesses, too, by giving them the tools and guardrails they need to prevent scenarios like that playing out in their stores. Victims who often have no idea they are interacting with cryptocurrency are then hit with exorbitant, sometimes undisclosed fees that can reach as high as 30%. An already devastating crime then becomes more financially ruinous.
This bill places reasonable, proven protections on these machines. $1,000 daily transaction limits so that people can't lose their entire life savings in a blink. Refunds for scam victims to make them whole. That includes refunds on exorbitant fees. Transaction receipts and know your customer requirements that provide traceability to assist law enforcement for criminal investigations. Licensing of state operators to ensure only vetted operators manage these kiosks. And required fraud warnings would be printed on the kiosk and shown electronically that customers would have to acknowledge before proceeding. We now have clear evidence from Iowa, from Alabama, from Washington, D.C., from Massachusetts, red and blue communities alike, reaching the same conclusion, and that's that an extraordinarily high percentage of kiosk transactions are tied to fraud. Operators know it, and they're not doing nearly enough to protect their customers. Law enforcement sees it every day. Regulators see it. And attorney generals from both parties see it. And as you've heard today already, Wisconsin law enforcement, financial institutions, consumer protection groups, and citizens see it too. And make no mistake, this bill is not anti-crypto. It does nothing to regulate cryptocurrency any more than an ATM regulates the US dollar. It simply adds the kinds of common sense prevention measures that consumers already expect when using an ATM or money transmitter. It also strikes a middle ground approach where it allows cryptocurrency ATMs to operate while preventing fraud. I want to just underline the industry's own data that the average transaction amount is $350. This bill accommodates the general, legitimate use of these machines. I wanted to draw attention to one of our fellow Midwestern states, Indiana, which recently passed an all-out ban on cryptocurrency kiosks by a 45-0 vote in their Senate and a 93-1 vote in their House. The state senator who introduced the amendment to change Indiana's bill to an all-out ban said the following in a local news story. "We're never in the business of putting anybody out of business. That's not our goal here in the state of Indiana," said Senator Scott Baldwin. But, he added, "I can think of no substantial legitimate reasons to warrant these kiosks. I think these kiosks have a strong propensity to be havens for money laundering and havens for tax evasion." He leads the Senate's Financial Institutions panel in Indiana. And before we take your questions, I would just like you to spend your time today taking note of who is speaking in favor of this bill and who's speaking against this bill. I think Senator James already mentioned who's registered for it. I will be interested to see if there is a legitimate user, just one, who comes here before you and talks about the burden that this bill would put on them. I'm guessing, I would be willing to bet that not one person will show up to speak in opposition to this bill who's a legitimate user of a crypto kiosk. With that, on behalf of our 800,000 members across the state, many of whom have joined us today, many more from each of your districts who couldn't make it, I'd like to thank you for holding a hearing on this bill. Welcome your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Senator Smith.
Well, I'm just curious to hear the story about a Quick Trip clerk or anybody else. Actually, how do they recognize someone's being scammed? I mean, I give them credit that they are paying attention in the first place.
You see someone on a phone because they're being coached. They usually look pretty frenzied because they're being threatened, and they're feeding fat cash into this machine as fast as they can. This isn't a deliberate choice that someone's making. This is someone trying to escape harm.
Wow, you see that on TV.
Yeah. So we connected with both the gentleman from Port Washington who manages a grocery store and a Quick Trip clerk at DFI. Had a really great roundtable on crypto kiosks in November. So I'm sure DFI could connect you if you wanted to reach out to either of them to talk about what kind of signs they look out for. But as Raj said, it's someone on a phone, someone looking frantic, and feeding a large sum of cash into a machine.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
I was remiss, Senator James, thank you so much for your leadership on getting this bill introduced, so thank you.
Next up.
Up next, we have John Turk representing CoinFlip, speaking against, and then on deck will be Lorenzo Cruz from the Wisconsin Bankers Association speaking in favor.
John, the floor is yours.
Oh, good morning. Thank you, everyone, members of the committee, for the opportunity to provide testimony regarding AB 968 and SB 975. My name is John Turk. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for CoinFlip. While CoinFlip opposes certain language in the bills relating to regulation of virtual currency kiosks, we do support regulatory measures that would further consumer protection, including, but not limited to, licensure, mandatory disclosures, transaction limits for new customers, compliance program requirements, and technological requirements. We started working with legislators here in Wisconsin in early 2025 to draft legislation to regulate the industry here. While we were in the middle of that process, DFI sent out a guidance document placing further restrictions on cryptocurrency kiosk operators to include $2,000 a day limits for all customers, robust disclosures both on the screen and kiosk, and further internal compliance controls. We have been in negotiations with DFI to place further consumer protections in the guidance document while allowing experienced customers to conduct transactions at higher amounts. We appreciate the opportunity to offer additional consumer protection-focused recommendations that we know to be highly effective in preventing fraudulent transactions at kiosks, and look forward to continuing to work with the state of Wisconsin to protect consumers. CoinFlip is a Chicago-based global digital currency platform focused on providing consumers a simple and secure way to buy and sell virtual currency. Founded in 2015, CoinFlip is one of the world's largest operators of virtual currency kiosks with more than 5,000 locations across the U.S. and countries around the world, employing more than 200 people. CoinFlip's kiosks make buying and selling major cryptocurrencies accessible and secure for consumers who wish to purchase their virtual currency using cash. CoinFlip has operated in the state of Wisconsin since 2017 and was granted a money transmitter license by DFI in August of 2024. Additionally, CoinFlip is a money service business registered with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. As an MSB, CoinFlip is subject to the Bank Secrecy Act, the USA Patriot Act, and their implementing rules and regulations. CoinFlip embraces licensing regimes as an effective means to create baseline requirements for operations, as well as effective oversight. CoinFlip holds approximately 39 money transmitter licenses, with additional applications currently pending. CoinFlip has moved to obtain these licenses even in states where there is no licensing requirement. It is vital that smart pro-consumer regulations are enacted to provide needed guardrails to the industry. However, it's also important to remember that all cryptocurrency scams that happened in the U.S. in 2024, 3% happened at a kiosk and 97% at another product. Additionally, the vast majority of the financial fraud still occurs at traditional financial institutions, whether it's bank transfers, ACH, gift cards, or payment apps like Venmo and PayPal. This bill requires companies to employ third-party blockchain analytics technology, which responsible operators already do. That technology monitors transaction data, blocks blacklisted wallets, and is what law enforcement uses to track the funds. This data shows that less than 1% of our transactions are scam or fraud related, in line with expectations at traditional finance. In Wisconsin in 2025, we had 1,860 unique customers. Of those, 25 contacted us to request refunds, not all of which were legitimate. Unfortunately, these bills were introduced a little over 3 weeks ago without industry input and rely on policy recommendations that create a false sense of consumer protection. The proposed transaction limits in the bill do not adequately consider federal reporting requirements. Under federal law, CoinFlip is required to file suspicious activity reports for any suspicious transactions above $2,000 and a currency transaction report for any suspected suspicious transactions or any transactions above $10,000. This information is placed in a repository for law enforcement to quickly and accurately conduct investigations. The proposed $1,000 transaction limit encourages stacking transactions across multiple kiosk operators and limits companies' anti-money laundering efforts. Further, the limit will result in less information available to law enforcement as kiosk operators no longer file any SARs or CTRs here in Wisconsin. Lastly, the refund provisions found in AB 968 are unprecedented for money service businesses. No other financial service product has statutory requirements for authorized transactions like contained in this bill. Under Regulation E, a consumer is entitled to a refund for an unauthorized transfer, not for transactions the consumer authorized or participated in. The refund requirement placed only on kiosk operators also implies no other stop along the scam. The phone company, email provider, or financial institution have any responsibility for the scam transaction. I know another bill that came out of the Speaker's Task Force, AB 972, holds financial institutions harmless for stopping or not stopping a potential fraudulent transaction. Taking these two bills into consideration, financial institutions are passing that responsibility to other businesses and then attempting to regulate them out of existence. CoinFlip believes smart regulation is good for business. We believe that regulatory framework is necessary to protect consumers and encourage innovation in the industry. However, transaction limits, fee limits, and refund provisions as currently proposed in AB 968 are a de facto ban on operating in Wisconsin and do not take into consideration federal reporting requirements. Instead, we developed the following best practices that would further enhance consumer protections and support their inclusion in any legislation. Requiring licensure with the state, requiring robust compliance programs, requiring clear, highly visible warnings and fee disclosures, requiring blockchain analytics, and requiring live customer service. We share your goal of consumer protection. Although blockchain technology and virtual currency kiosks are new, the fraud we see reported is all too familiar. Whether it's phone, email, text, or an online pop-up, scammers repackage the same old tactics and utilize whatever methods they have at hand: Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, gift cards, MoneyGram, or virtual currency kiosks to dupe people out of their money. The best defense for consumers is to be well-informed and well-alerted at the point of transaction, and the best defense for companies is to have the right tools in place to help identify and fight fraud and help law enforcement catch the bad actors. And with that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator James, did you? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in your testimony, do we have a copy of his testimony?
I'll make sure that gets submitted.
Thank you. You said 3% of the fraudulent claims through CoinFlip were done on the kiosks, and the other 97% were done on other platforms?
That's cryptocurrency overall, of all reported fraud in the U.S. in 2024. So not our company.
Overall, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that kind of skewed my dollars and stuff, because that still represents over $99 million of people's money that was taken through the kiosks themselves, which is the issue that we're trying to address here. You mentioned something about DFI guidance.
Mm-hmm.
When did that start and take place?
It was very spring of last year.
Okay, so have you all been following that guidance or using the best?
We're required to, or
practice?
they'll pull our license.
Okay, but we still have these fraud things happening.
Well, as the Wood County Sheriff testified in the Assembly Committee after that guidance was put into place, they saw scams fall off a cliff. I believe was his quote at the last hearing.
Okay, but even like this year, for example, I mean, you're aware of the $15,000 scam that happened at January 28th of 2026 in Dane County here, where a subject impersonated even the captain from the Dane County Sheriff's Department.
Mm-hmm.
So these types of things, they're the guidance and recommendations, but it's still taking advantage of our people.
Well, and I think that's where DFI needs to step in and ensure that their licensed operators are actually doing what they should be doing, and if they're not, their license should be revoked or they should be fined.
Okay. All right, I'm going to gather my thoughts here.
Sure. Go ahead, Senator Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. CoinFlip, the company, is it just kiosks, or do you have other services that you offer?
We have other services. We have
in the
an
crypto space?
Yes.
All crypto?
Yep, crypto. We have an over-the-counter order desk. So if you don't want to use our kiosks, you can connect your bank account or send in a wire to purchase larger amounts of cryptocurrency. Additionally, we have a donation platform. So if either a donor or a charity wants to take cryptocurrency, we either provide them with a wallet to accept cryptocurrency as a donation or just convert it to cash for them and send it to them as a donation.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Yep, go ahead, Senator Smith.
Why are kiosks even necessary?
Yeah, that's a great question. One we often get. So one of the main reasons and why people do it at a higher dollar amount is so when you go on a online platform like Coinbase, you're required to use their wallet, and it's called a hosted wallet. And not sure if you recall when FTX collapsed, Sam Bankman-Fried, that whole story. They were taking money out of their users' accounts because those are hosted wallets that they had access to. We do not have access to our customers' wallet. We use what's called unhosted wallets, or they can use whatever wallet they want when coming to us. So if CoinFlip went bankrupt tomorrow, we have no access to your funds and can't take money out of your accounts. So that's one of the reasons why true crypto people might want to use our account or our product.
So I missed a little bit of your testimony, but I caught a big chunk. So a couple of questions. You mentioned that the goal of this bill is to regulate you and bills like this out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
But you also mentioned that, and I missed some of the numbers, but there's a small number of fraud cases. Is that right?
Yep.
So can you level that out?
So the Assembly amendment helped a little bit in raising the daily transaction limit and limiting the fee cap. However, I think we're around 15 or so other states have regulated us, and most of those states have created a dichotomy between new and existing users. They've rightly had a lower daily transaction limit for new users that are the most vulnerable to potential scams, and then a higher amount for existing customers. So, like, for example, Illinois, that passed a bill just last year, set a $2,000 a day limit for new customers for the first 7 days that you'd be a customer of ours, and then that goes up to $10,500 after 7 days. So we advocate more like that. States, Maryland, Colorado, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Illinois, and others have all done that dichotomy and with those levels.
Okay, so the second part of my question, though, is how is this regulating you out of
and then
business?
refunds. Refunds for all customers. This is we always refund fees to customers. This bill requires refunds for any customer forever. Most bills, including Illinois and others, have mandatory refunds for new customers during that new user period. This bill has refunds for everyone forever, which just allows people to essentially scam us. Because unlike a unlike at Coinbase, where they're just connecting a buyer and a seller, we are selling our own wares of cryptocurrency. So when we have to do a refund to a customer, we're out not only the cryptocurrency that is in a scammer's wallet, but we're also out the fiat, the U.S. dollars that the customer put in that machine. So we are out double, and so we have more incentive than others in the financial services space to ensure we have a robust compliance program up front to make sure that doesn't happen.
I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, and Ledge Council, if you can weigh in, but I don't believe this is in perpetuity or forever. A virtual currency kiosk operator must issue a refund to a customer upon the customer's request for the full amount of a transaction, including fees, if the customer within 30 days of the transaction contacted the virtual currency kiosk operator. Is 30 days forever, or is it still 30 days?
You're right. It would be 30 days within the transaction.
Okay. So forever, I guess I'll misspeak there, but what I meant was most states have required full refunds for just the new customers doing a new customer period, and then after you're an existing customer, it's only a refund of fees.
Okay. Senator James, go ahead.
Thank you. I got a few more now. So I guess the first question is to kind of piggyback off Senator Smith. You know, he asked, why are these kiosks necessary?
Mm-hmm.
My follow-up to that is, what good comes out of these kiosks?
It's just another way for people to buy cryptocurrency that prefer buying them cash.
Are there other? Well, you said there's 97% are covered by other methods.
No, 97% of crypto fraud happened at other methods.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, okay. How many fraud cases do you guys get?
That's a good question. Like I said, in 2025, we had 25 customers out of our 1,800 contact us in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. And again, I think our fellow law enforcement in the state said there's an element of fear, there's an element of embarrassment. So I'm sure there's many more victims of this that have not even reported or they accept the fact once they contact law enforcement. Because I'm going to tell you something, what gets me is this is my closing to my report, and this is what sucks. On Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, I had further discussion with Chief Bowman about this incident. With this case being cryptocurrency related, there is no opportunity to attempt to investigate this fraud case any further. I have no further information at this time, and this case is closed. That's what I have to tell my people.
Yeah. So again, we support refunds for new customers, which creates an incentive for individuals that have been scammed at a kiosk to actually contact us, unlike every other financial service product in this country.
And I guess my other question would be, you made a statement saying that now you're being scammed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that a little bit further on how you would be scammed when the people, if my person, Rob, back at home, put in $7,000 cash into the machine, and they file a police complaint with this, and they contact your office within 30 days, they get that $7,000 back. How are you being scammed out of that?
Because the scammer still has the cryptocurrency. So we are out the crypto that we own the cryptocurrency. We're selling it to the customer.
Can't you get it back from them?
In certain cases, we can, yeah. But in the meantime, that's what happens. We're out the crypto and the cash.
But you have an opportunity to get it back from them.
Theoretically, a lot of the online overseas exchanges are now cooperating more with U.S. authorities in getting money back. So it is getting better.
Okay. And I guess a couple questions for Ledge Council here, if I may, Mr. Chair. Are there any prohibitions on filing a suspicious activity report on an amount less than $2,000?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. And then, does the state of Wisconsin require other money transmitters to provide refunds?
Yes, there are certain circumstances under current law where money transmitters have to provide a refund. I can just find that for you. So with certain exceptions, current law requires a money transmitter to refund senders any money received for transmission within 10 days of receipt of the sender's written request for a refund. And again, there are certain exceptions to that rule, but that is under current law.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Smith, go ahead.
Well, I'm really caught with the idea that you think it's okay only the first time to protect someone, but if they come back a week later or so and go to the 10,000, that's okay.
So what we've discovered at our kiosks is most of the scams that we see are like it's been discussed before. It's one-time, one-off pressure scams. There's a warrant out for your arrest. You need to deposit money into these machines. Once you're an existing customer using our machines, you know that's just not what is happening at these kiosks. That is not, every government entity will tell you that they don't accept funds via cryptocurrency to pay off a warrant scam or a fine of some sort. So again, we advocate for having existing users to have a higher limit because they understand their product.
I think you're making assumptions here, and if I'm sorry, I mean, this is comment, but I'm not an experienced person at any of these things, but I would think these scammers who are obviously very practiced at fooling people, but they would definitely be able to figure out a way to continue somebody. Well, you only get, they're going to tell them you can only do $2,000 today, but next week you can do $10,000 and have them come back. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out, but thank you for being here, I guess.
I'm going to ask a quick question. I'll let you, because last time I stole your question.
Mine's quick.
Go ahead.
So I'm a brand new customer. I go to your machine.
Mm-hmm.
What's the limit today at your machine?
$2,000.
Thank you.
The sheriff from Wood County testified and talked about his experience where initially they were able to provide warrants and then there was a whole situation. Does your company or is your position, or can you comment, to work with law enforcement in today's world?
Yeah.
Or, because this comes from a position of consumer protection, right? And where we found willful partners in the private sector, it's been a lot easier to not have to put anything into in statutory language and go through the governmental process. But the reason this has arisen, and Sarah James talked about it as an active law enforcement officer, and he read from a legitimate current report, we had the sheriff from Wood County, is the fact that we've not been able to have a great relationship with the private sector. So can you address that at all? Because in opposition, and I know it's lonely today for you as a sole person here in opposition, but if you could, I think that would help make a case if there is one, obviously, because it's pretty difficult.
Yeah. No, I would say in a lot of relatively new industries, there's good and bad actors, right? There's a lot of startup companies that may not invest heavily in compliance and legal as they should when they're just starting up. But we've always had a dedicated law enforcement contact on our legal team to deal with incoming requests for information or subpoenas from law enforcement. And then on top of that, we recently hired a director of law enforcement relations who actually spent the last 4 years at the Wisconsin DOJ investigating these crimes in particular. So he actually attended the Chiefs of Police Conference this month, or last month, whenever that was, and is trying to help educate law enforcement on investigating these crimes and having more seamless teamwork when these things come up.
So beyond education, what's the term I'm looking for? Cooperation.
Right.
Is that a goal within your company?
Yeah, we have a dedicated law enforcement phone line, email for them to contact us with, and that's our goal.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? Okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Lorenzo Cruz representing the Wisconsin Bankers Association. Speaking in favor, on deck will be Jim Olson and Chris Rydell representing the Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Association. Additionally, I have a Scott Simons from the Greenfield Police Department. If you did want to come up at that time with the other police departments, you can.
Welcome back. Go ahead when you're ready.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Julian Bradley and members of the Committee on Utilities, Technology, and Tourism. On behalf of the Wisconsin Bankers, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of AB 968, 975, which would regulate virtual currency kiosk operators. Virtual currency kiosks, often referred to as crypto ATMs, have rapidly become one of the most frequently used tools in consumer fraud schemes. Their speed, relative anonymity, and their irreversible nature of transactions make them especially attractive to scammers. Nationwide, reported losses tied to virtual currency kiosk fraud now exceeds hundreds of millions of dollars annually, with federal data showing more than $333 million in losses in 2025 alone. Older adults and other unsuspecting consumers are disproportionately harmed, often losing retirement or life savings in a matter of minutes. AB 968, SB 975 addresses the vulnerabilities that scammers exploit by applying proven, practical consumer protection measures that are already familiar to financial regulators. First, by requiring virtual currency kiosk operators to be licensed as money transmitters, the bill brings these businesses under the supervision of the Division of Banking within the Department of Financial Institutions. This ensures consistent oversight, accountability, and enforcement aligns kiosk operators with other financial service providers that handle consumer funds and promotes regulatory parity, transparency, and consumer trust. Second, the bill requires clear, standardized fraud warnings at the point of transaction with mandatory customer acknowledgement before a transaction can proceed. These warnings are critical in disrupting the urgency and coercion that drive many scams and clearly communicate that legitimate government agencies, banks, and businesses do not require payment through virtual currency kiosks. Third, AB 968 SB 95 establishes customer identification and verification requirements, including government-issued identifications and customer photographs at the kiosk. These measures significantly reduce anonymity, deter criminal misuse, and provide law enforcement with essential information when fraud occurs. Fourth, the bill limits transaction amounts, which is one of the most effective tools for reducing consumer harm. Scammers frequently pressure victims into making repeated or high-dollar transactions in a brief period of time. Daily transaction caps meaningfully reduce losses even when attempts are successful. Fifth, the bill creates a refund rights for fraud victims who promptly report scams. This provides critical recourse where none currently exists and encourages kiosk operators to invest in stronger fraud detection and prevention practices. Finally, additional safeguards include required customer service availability, detailed receipts, written anti-fraud policies, and advance notice to law enforcement of kiosk locations, which further enhance transparency, accountability, and cooperation with authorities. Moreover, AB 968, SB 975 does not ban virtual currency kiosks or stifle innovation. Instead, it establishes reasonable safeguards that protect consumers, deter fraud, and ensure that businesses handling consumer funds operate within a clear and enforceable regulatory framework. For a committee charged with protecting consumers and maintaining confidence in Wisconsin's financial systems, AB 968, SB 975 represents a measured, necessary, and timely response to a clear and growing fraud risk. On behalf of the Wisconsin Bankers Association, we respectfully urge your support. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. A couple of quick questions, and we'll say in general, right? Obviously, there may be exceptions, but if I got a text message that said I didn't pay a toll, and I paid it using my debit card, and it was found to be fraudulent, and I called the bank, is it your experience that the bank would release the funds back to me? In most cases.
In most cases, yes, sir.
That's been my experience as well. If I got an email from a Nigerian prince, and the Nigerian prince said, I need you to send me $500 immediately so that you can get the rest of your inheritance. First of all, is this a real email or not? Because I'm about to I kid.
That's my brother.
I'm only kidding.
We do get
but
emails
in that situation, to your knowledge, in most cases, will the bank provide a refund or at the very least place a hold?
Yes.
That's been my experience as well. I'm trying to, I appreciate that, but I'm trying to, I have Easy Pass. I pay my tolls. That's how I know it's fraudulent. But what I'm trying to establish is there is that level of protection that banks today are providing when fraud occurs, right? And it doesn't just have to be in an example of a text or an email or anything like that. It can be cloning of a debit card. This has personally happened to me when I was traveling, and my bank was able to take care of it. The money returned back to my account while they pursued, right? That is consumer protection. And I believe that to be the goal of this bill. Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions. I'm sorry. Additional questions from members of the committee? All right. Thank you.
Up now, we have Jim Olson and Chris Rydell from the Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Association. And then did Scott Simons want to come up if he is still here from the Greenfield Police Department? Separate? Then you'll be on deck, sir.
Gentlemen, good afternoon when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you to Senator James, Representative Snyder, for putting forward this piece of legislation that's critically important in protecting Wisconsinites from fraud by scamsters. I'm going to try to filter some of what you already have in writing in front of you, just since it's been already said for you. The WCPA, we represent nearly 1,000 law enforcement executives across the state. We urge your support of Senate Bill 975. The proposal would implement really much-needed transaction limits, as well as provide for refunds for virtual currency kiosks, commonly known to as crypto ATMs, when they are used to defraud consumers. This bill, to me, hits personally as well as professionally. Professionally, we've really welcomed what DFI did to put some restraints and some limits on the institutions or on these kiosks, but also this legislation is a necessary step to really ensure long-term regulation. Many of our neighboring Midwestern states have already adopted legislation or have pending legislation to protect their citizens, specifically Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, and North Dakota. With our borders, it makes it easier for scamsters to jump the border and get people to make fraudulent transactions and defraud them of their life savings, and in some cases, generational wealth. Again, I mentioned earlier, this hits me personally and professionally. Personally, several years ago, my mother fell victim to a scam. It came into her computer. She opened an email. It looked just like a regular email from my brother, his name. The only way she would have known, and at her age of now 78, is to really open up that email address to see what the true email address is, but it said the name. And as soon as she opened the email, her computer went crazy and told her, "You're locked up, you have to call this number." As soon as she called the number, of course, you're not talking to Windows support on an Apple device, I might add, but you're talking to, obviously, a scamster. She lost $50,000 in 2 transactions. She went to one bank, withdrew $25,000 in cash, went to deposit it into a crypto machine. Went to another bank, took $25,000 in cash, deposited it into a crypto machine. They kept calling her saying, we still can't open up your computer. Now you have a $3,000 device you've now put $50,000 against. She went back to one of the banks. And it had not been for a wise teller who said, first of all, we let you out of here the first time. Normally you have to order that much cash to leave. What's going on? You're being scammed. And thankfully that teller picked up on the scam. Otherwise, who knows? She could have been out even more. We have my 2 brothers. My father passed away a few years ago, but my brothers and I can help her support, for what she lost. But some people don't have that luxury. And they're losing life savings. They're losing generational wealth. They're losing everything they have on a scam. I've been doing this, I'm in my 37th, soon I'll start my 37th year in policing. The first 29 years were in the city of Milwaukee. And I can tell you, when I started, it was checks. It was all about checks and fraudulent checks and issuance of worthless checks. And then it went to credit card scams and credit card fraud, and stealing credit card numbers. And now we've just progressed into this world. I don't know of too many people that have a legitimate business to carry $25,000 in cash around in a purse or a wallet and to pump it into a machine. There's just no legitimate reason for that, unless you're dealing drugs or you're going to get scammed.
There's other avenues with wire transfers and everything banks can do today, or legitimate dealers can do. There is a safer way to protect Wisconsinites in that space. As the chief of police, it's one of the best things I get to do every year is do our award ceremony. And in the last ceremony, I was fortunate to give 2 different awards to different businesses in DeForest that stopped a couple crypto scams. One was a gas station. There was a Quick Trip. The people came in and it was an elderly couple. We've gone so far as to put warning signs on top of the crypto ATMs, just saying you may be being scammed if you're feeling pressured or you're getting a couple different things. You can call the police for guidance if you need to, right? You can conduct your business, but we're here for you if we need to. In that case, the people didn't lose anything because the 3 store employees it took to tell them they were being defrauded. And the other case was at another local business. The person had $16,000 in cash in their hand, and they got about $12,000 into the machine before there was one person as a cash register area that was busy, noticed it and said, something isn't right, and stopped them. So this is just a couple of small examples that we have. I heard, Senator Jameson example he had, 100% bang on right. People are embarrassed. This isn't an easy thing to say, I lost that much money, I'm so fill in the blank. But we need to do more as, again, on behalf of WCPA and the nearly 1,000 law enforcement executives, we urge your support for this measure. I asked Captain Riedel to appear here with me today as we do have some DeForest numbers to give you just an anecdotal what we face in one community in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so I appreciate your time today. So I'm not going to reiterate a lot of the stuff that Wood County said because we're very similar. A lot of what they said is what we're experiencing on a daily basis. We have trained our staff fairly decently in recognizing these and kind of the steps to take to try to get people's money back, some of it when they make these complaints. But as was said earlier, a lot of this is happening so fast that the money is going overseas by the time we're even notified. So the chance of us getting any of that money back is just not happening. So I'll give you just some data from DeForest, which is a community of about 13,000 people in northern Dane County, so a small fraction of the entire state. In 2025, we took complaints related to Bitcoin scams, and the loss was upwards of $150,000. In 2026, we are already on pace to exceed that. I would say probably close to double that in the scams we're going to have this year just by the numbers we've had in 2 months. So obviously it's a growing issue that's impacting not just elderly people. Obviously, we've talked about we've had people who are not elderly that have come in and fallen victims of this scam. The last thing I'll say is we recently had a scam that somebody got scammed multiple times over and over, which we kind of I've heard discussion about that already at this hearing, and it was upwards of $75,000 that this person lost over multiple going to Bitcoin machines multiple times before somebody finally caught on to it. So again, I appreciate your time.
No, if there's any other questions we can answer, we'd be happy to do so.
Sure. Questions from members? Go ahead, Senator James.
Chief Olson, Caporito, thank you for being here today. Thank you for serving your community as well as you do. Thank you for advocating for our people in the state of Wisconsin, especially when it comes to this piece of legislation. The question that I have is, so how cooperative is like CoinFlip, Cash Depot, Bitcoin? How much cooperation do you get from these companies when you have a victim of a scam like this? And do you contact them? Because previously they said they have a Wisconsin DOJ guy that they hired. Now that's the law enforcement contact and stuff. How much help are you getting?
I think the help varies depending on the who we're dealing with. Some are a little bit more forthcoming. Help is a very broadly defined term. There are some that we can point you in the right direction, and you don't ever connect with anybody, but others are willing to step up and help at least recover transaction fees, which again at 20%, that's a little bit of money. But there is a varying degrees of help that we do get.
I think the piggyback on that is that whether they're overly helpful or not overly helpful, a lot of times what we see is that the money is moving so fast overseas that we're not going to be able to get that back anyways, no matter how cooperative they are with us. So I think that tends to be some of the struggle that we run into.
And I guess another question I have, because the existing customer claim has come up, and what I've been hearing from law enforcement is that they've seen wallets created months in advance by these scammers, and that creates a problem because they're not truly they consider them an existing customer, but they get the activity inside of these wallets when the money's already been funneled into them, and they're saying that this would eliminate the refund and take it up to the $10,000 because the scammers already created the account prior. Are you kind of getting where I'm at?
Yeah, they're trying to create a way to make people existing customers, is the way I understand the issue.
Yes.
Which then allows for a greater amount of fraud.
Thank you.
Without being told.
I was just, so, both of my questions, and you nailed exactly my follow-up to Senator James's question, right? Because it's been suggested that, well, if we changed this and made them delineated between existing and new customers, that should solve the problem. And you've answered that, so I appreciate that. I had the same question.
I too, apparently didn't pay some tolls in case.
Those texts are, anyway,
They're getting very sophisticated. They look real, is the problem.
They are, and they're getting better at making it look legitimate. So, additional questions from members of the committee? All right. Thank you. God bless you. Be safe.
Thank you all for your time.
Next up, we have Scott Simmons, if I mispronounced that, I apologize, from the Greenfield Police Department, and then on deck will be Beth Seawall.
Good afternoon, when you're ready. I think your microphone might be off.
I think I got it.
There we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Chairman Bradley, members of the committee, thank you very much for this opportunity to testify in strong support of Assembly Bill 968 and Senate Bill 975. My name is Scott Simons, and I hold multiple positions supporting my knowledge and expertise pertaining to these bills. I've been a Wisconsin law enforcement officer for 24 years. I'm a detective with the Greenfield Police Department, which is in Milwaukee County, a member of the Midwest Cryptocurrency Task Force, former federal law enforcement for 10 years, investigating transnational criminal organizations utilizing cryptocurrency, a cryptocurrency instructor, and director of investigations for a national nonprofit assisting cryptocurrency scam victims in their local police agencies. Before I get into kind of my pre-planned, what I want to read to you, just wanted to follow up on one thing that Wood County had mentioned about, it was specifically the Bitcoin ATM that they physically took into their custody. I guess I want to talk about that for a minute because that did impact us throughout the entire state. Bitcoin Depot's response to Wood County taking one of their physical kiosk machines into their custody was their recourse was not an action against law enforcement. The recourse was stopping all reimbursements to victims. So that was the impact to us. We had victims in Greenfield and Milwaukee County, and we still did our investigation. The impact hurt victims. On a personal level, I'm very pro-business. I'm very pro-cryptocurrency. I personally own cryptocurrency for my own investment, and I support anyone else who wishes to do the same. That said, the financial industry is generally highly regulated by federal and state laws to protect users and ensure accounts and institutions are not unknowingly being used to further criminal acts. As it stands today, there is no such law regulating or protecting Wisconsinites with respect to these virtual currency kiosks. I am one of only a handful of expert law enforcement cryptocurrency investigators in the state of Wisconsin. Basically, when most local police agencies in Wisconsin get a cryptocurrency case, most of them are contacting me or our State Department of Justice, DCI. While cryptocurrency can be used for legitimate purposes, I've likely investigated in excess of 1,000 investigations involving cryptocurrency, which includes fraud, drug trafficking, human trafficking, child sexual abuse material, and more. While it is a very small percentage of investigations that result in the recovery of illicit cryptocurrency, I've seized several $1 million worth of cryptocurrency over my career. I assist multiple police agencies and victims daily specific to crypto kiosks. These victims range from vulnerable adults to children who are being exploited to well-educated doctors. These victims are absolutely devastated financially and psychologically. It is always the same tragic stories. They took out a second mortgage on their home. They ended up foreclosing on their home. They lost their entire life savings, so they're returning to work at 75 years of age. They're ashamed to tell their family. They've lost their child's college fund. I had one recently where their spouse recently died, and they ended up losing all the money they received from the life insurance policy. They were coerced because the alleged federal agent on the phone said they'd be arrested if they didn't do as they were told, or they're distracted because their spouse recently passed away. It's always the same thing. Many of the victims we find are targeted from public lists of professional licenses, which you can find online. The scammers are just going online to identify victims. Many of these victims are teachers, judges, lawyers, nurses, even family members of names they're finding from obituaries. I'm a detective, but daily I act as a therapist to victims who are oftentimes depressed, don't know where to turn, they don't know how to start over, and oftentimes are suicidal because of these scams. We must support AB968 and SB975 and act immediately. As stated, I not only investigate these life-altering crimes in Wisconsin, but also throughout the United States. I work with victims in states that have no crypto kiosk laws, and I work with victims in states that do have these crypto kiosk laws. The difference is night and day. These are not the local drug dealer on the corner or your local burglar breaking into your garage. These are well-coordinated criminal organizations overseas in countries like China, Russia, and India, who also have co-conspirators throughout the United States. They use well-trained and oftentimes human-trafficked individuals to scam our Wisconsinites into depositing significant amounts of U.S. currency into these crypto kiosks that can be found in everyday businesses throughout Wisconsin. I'd like to focus on some of the key elements of AB 968, SB 975, and some of the false claims that I've heard. So crypto kiosks are utilized in less than 1% of cryptocurrency fraud. From my vast experience, crypto kiosks are still used in the majority of crypto fraud cases reported to local law enforcement. Most of these cases, though, do not officially get documented because federal agencies are overburdened with their own investigations, and local law enforcement do not have the expensive tools and resources needed to properly investigate. Because of my assignments, my roles, I have access to some of these tools. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars for just me to have one license for a year. Most agencies can't afford this. For these reasons, and because victims are ashamed, these crypto kiosk fraud cases go unreported and uninvestigated. Next, it is very difficult to connect fraud specifically to crypto kiosk in many cases. It could take months or years to verify that stolen funds were sent from a crypto kiosk. Any crypto investigator knows the accuracy of blockchain analytics is only as accurate as the tool being used. This means that if it is not absolutely known a particular cryptocurrency address belongs to a crypto kiosk company, it will not accurately be reported. Finally, even if the number of cases has decreased, it's because states have been passing these bills. Specific to the $1,000 daily limit, since 2005, the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions, or DFI, has provided guidance that crypto kiosks have a $2,000 daily limit per user. Based on my observations, this guidance proves the bill will be effective, but there are still many loopholes being exploited by the scammers due to poor control by the crypto kiosk companies. Prior to the DFI guidance, I investigated many high-dollar scams. Just to mention one, almost $600,000 was stolen from a physician via crypto kiosks. Since the DFI guidance, the stolen dollar amounts have definitely decreased, but this is also only guidance. Wisconsin needs the actual law. Due to the DFI guidance, scammers are directing victims to drive to these other states, such as Illinois and Minnesota, which have the $2,000 first-time user limit. And I know Illinois for sure has that $10,500 for existing users. Just yesterday, I wanted to, again, I work investigations throughout the U.S. I wanted to check in with Illinois and Minnesota, so I spoke to detectives just yesterday, and they said that two-tier, those bills, they do not work. And I'll get into that shortly on why that is. Victims are also being successful within Wisconsin at transferring more than $2,000 per day at the very same crypto kiosk due to the kiosk companies failing to properly identify the user. The victims are being directed to use already existing kiosk accounts, which allows the victims to complete multiple transactions as a different user each time. These high dollar losses will be eliminated by a $1,000 daily limit for all users and the users being properly identified before each transaction. Physical and digital receipt provided to the user. Victims are oftentimes being directed to, again, conduct transactions under accounts created by other victims throughout the U.S. When that happens, a digital receipt is not being sent to our victim. It's being sent to the person who actually created the account. So we need those digital receipts, but we also need physical receipts. Victims are oftentimes directed by scammers to dispose of or destroy physical receipts. Each receipt must contain crucial transaction details for law enforcement to be able to quickly trace and potentially recover stolen cryptocurrency. If these details are not immediately available, it often requires a court order and the crypto kiosk legal team to process requests, which can take weeks or months. Before I move on to the next section, I just want to stress what we are currently seeing is, yes, DFI has guidance, $2,000 per user per day. But we have victims coming in saying, I just did 5 transactions at the same kiosk within minutes. I've now transferred $10,000, $2,000 each time. Why the kiosk companies aren't identifying the physical person doing that transaction, I have no idea. If they did, they would be limited to that one transaction. Finally, I'd like to share an investigation that recently came to a conclusion. The investigation shows the extent of crypto kiosks being specifically targeted by scammers and the lack of cooperation from some of the crypto kiosk companies. In 2025, I assisted an investigator in Kenosha County and the victim who had lost $10,000 in that scam. Due to the extent of victims being targeted across the United States that I had identified, I was able to recover $575,000 in cryptocurrency off of one of our Wisconsinites losing $10,000. None of this was flagged or reported by crypto kiosk companies, yet it all originated from crypto kiosks. I spent months tracing the cryptocurrency backwards out of the $575,000, all back to crypto kiosks. I identified approximately 24 victims. I identified some because they reported the crime. I identified some others from limited cooperation from a couple of the crypto kiosk companies. One crypto kiosk company in particular was used to steal more than $300,000 out of this $575,000. After multiple voicemails, multiple emails to this crypto kiosk company, I received no response whatsoever. I explained to them I wasn't looking for records from them. I was holding on to money that belonged to their customers that were scammed by their platform. No response at all. I interviewed the other 24 victims who I identified. Many said their police departments could not investigate cryptocurrency. Many never followed through with reporting. Many were too ashamed to report. And many didn't even know they were victimized until I talked to them about it. This is how such a large number of these crypto kiosk scams go unreported. I've never contacted a crypto kiosk user to learn that they were not victimized. I am a cryptocurrency user myself. I've never personally found any legitimate need for myself to use a crypto kiosk. In fact, as a law enforcement officer, sometimes undercover law enforcement officers use crypto kiosks to purchase drugs, to pay for prostitution. I respectfully request your full support for Assembly Bill 968 and Senate Bill 975. And I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you for being here and for your testimony. Questions from members? Yes, Senator James, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your expertise and knowledge. Do we have a copy of his testimony? Because I definitely like that.
I do have copies.
Okay, thank you very much. A question that I have is, in your capacity, how many cases have you seen, since you've done over 1,000, you said, how many have you seen that have been successfully prosecuted?
If we're talking fraud scams, which has been the majority, in Wisconsin, I haven't seen one. Yes, I work I help in some other states, maybe a couple. It's very difficult, especially these scammers overseas, which is the majority. It would have to be an extremely large case. We're talking multiple millions of dollars. It would have to tie into a case that's already being federally investigated. Very little to none.
So I just want to make sure I captured what you were saying about you had a case where you recovered $575,000 in crypto, and you were trying to reach out to the vendor to coordinate some return, and there was zero response whatsoever.
That's correct. And one other thing to add to that is I actually happened to be speaking to an investigator from Florida, and I told him about that. And he said, hey, I'm actually going to be talking to the law enforcement director with that kiosk company today. Would you like me to see if he can help you? Hey, that would be great. So later on that day, this investigator said, I spoke to the director. He said, here's his number. Go ahead and give him a call. Called him twice, left voicemails, never heard back.
Okay. And then I read ahead a little bit. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but I see the Bitcoin Depot testimony here. And I just have a question, because in the testimony it says that by mandating a low overall limit, this bill inadvertently encourages scammers to operate below the federal reporting tripwire, effectively blinding law enforcement to the very data needed to catch them. And it kind of reverts back to my first question is, we're not even catching these people.
No, we're not. And
Something I was thinking too is, I mean, there's something called structuring. If we're talking about like filing SARs, that can definitely be done under $10,000, under $2,000. And yes, crypto kiosks are much more prevalent in these cryptocurrency scams than 1%. That said, if you go to one of these stores where there's a crypto kiosk, there's not normally someone standing there. So a kiosk company should be able to see that, hey, there's been no one there for 6 hours. Now all of a sudden, within 20 minutes, it's been used 5 times. All the funds have been sent to the same Bitcoin address. And each one was logged in from a different account. I would think that could be seen.
And just to clarify for the committee, SARs are suspicious activity reports.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Additional questions from members of the committee? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. And I used to represent Greenfield, so please tell the mayor I said hello.
I will. Thank you very much.
Up next, we have Beth Seawall as speaking in favor, and then on deck will be a Karen Schmeling, also speaking in favor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Beth Seawall, and I am a victim of a computer scam. I would like you to know a little bit about me. I'm 63 years old, married for 40 years, have 2 children and 6 grandchildren, of whom are the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. This will come into my story later. I'm retired from the city of Appleton, where I was a buyer part-time for 30 years. I live in Combined Locks and served on the village board for over 20 years. I learned a lot about politics from my many years of serving my community and making important decisions that would impact my constituents. Before I start my story, I would like you to look at me and imagine that I am your sister, your mother, your daughter, your cousin, and take this in. On March 28th of last year, a pop-up appeared on the screen of my computer from Microsoft saying that I had a breach on my network and that there's high security on all of my accounts, including my phone and computer, and that I needed to call their number that was listed on the screen. This was a new computer that we had just purchased a short time ago, and I didn't know what kind of protection I had. So I called the number. The man that answered was foreign, which nowadays is not unusual. He gave me a password number, and he told me that he would help me figure out what was going on and that he would assemble a team to help me get through this. He asked me if it would be okay if he called me back on an encrypted line to protect me from the hacker getting into my phone conversation with him. I agreed, not thinking this would be a big deal. He asked me to do a C prompt. I don't know if you know what a C prompt is on a computer, but a small black screen came up and I could see all of my files running through when it stopped on a site called www.pornhub.net, which was timestamped at 4:30 a.m. in China. He told me that's a problem and said somebody took $20,000 from my account to make purchases from this site. He had me check my bank accounts to see if there was any strange activity, which there wasn't. And then he went on to tell me that he would get Fox Credit Union on the line, which I'm assuming they got when I was flipping through and checking my accounts, so they could work with me to get things resolved. At once, another person was on the line with us. I did write down his name. His name was Alan Scott, who gave me his ID number and his phone number. I don't recall if the first guy who said he was from Microsoft stayed on the line with me or not. But Alan Scott from the credit union said that I needed to go to the credit union and withdraw $20,000 and he would help me get it back into my account. He also said that time was short because in China, where the money was going to purchase for the Pornhub was going to be opening in a few hours, so it needed to get done right away. So I went to the credit union, withdrew $20,000 cash. He stayed on the line with me and told me that I should, if anybody asked what it was for, to say it was for a home renovation project. And that's what I did. He also told me to look around and make sure no one was close by because there could be people that could be suspicious. After I got the money, he told me that I needed to put it in the ATM. And I said, well, there's an ATM right here. And he responded that there's a specific CoinHub ATM machine that I needed to go to. He gave me directions to a Shell station on Wisconsin Avenue in Appleton and told me the ATM there was a CoinHub machine and that it was yellow and black. This would be the one that I'd be using to insert the money. He also gave me instructions that I could only put in a certain amount in the first time and then would have to do it maybe 2 or 3 more times. He was still on the phone with me, assuring me that everything would be all right. So I went to this Shell station and I saw the yellow and black machine. I've heard of crypto money, but I didn't know anything about a Bitcoin machine. So I followed his instructions carefully, which included placing my driver's license on the screen before I put the money into it. He told me to be very conscious about who was nearby and he would walk me through everything I needed to do. When I inserted the money, the only other person there was the guy behind the counter, who at one point I had to ask him for a different $100 bill because the machine wouldn't accept one of my bills that I had. After I was finished, he told me that I would be getting a phone call with a choice of a number prompt and that I should, press 2 to cancel all charges. He stated that many times within our conversation to make sure you press 2. Always make sure you press 2, which was odd, but whatever. And sure enough, an automated call came, and it was to press 1 for something, I don't remember what she said, and press 2 for something else. I don't remember because he told me to press 2. Just be sure you press 2. So I did. He was very happy about it. And he was telling me I did a good job and I'm still here for you. And he said I did it in time before it went any further, meaning the money to China. He stayed on the line with me when I was leaving, and out of the blue he said, I just found something else. $5,000 more was taken. I need you to go to Home Depot and get gift cards for $5,000, and I'll tell you what to do after you purchase them. I questioned him. Well, how did you find that now and it wasn't with the original request? He said, well, sometimes that happens. On my way to the Home Depot, his call dropped. My daughter called me when my phone was available and was in a panic because she couldn't get a hold of me as I was on the phone for almost 4 hours. I said to her, my computer was compromised. I don't know, I'm on my way to Home Depot, I might have been scammed, and I hung up on her. Alan called me back, seemed a little miffed that I took another call, and started talking me through the process again and stayed with me on the line. I went to Home Depot, grabbed 3 cards, went to the service desk and told them I needed to purchase $5,000 total on the cards. The store manager had to come to the service desk to approve of the high purchase. They went to get the store manager and he was still on the phone, waiting. The phone was in my pocket, and when the store manager came to the desk, it hit me. I started shaking, started crying. My heart was racing. I looked up at the manager and I said, call the police. I kept him on the line, waiting for the police to arrive. He asked me what was taking so long for the manager, and I said, I don't know, maybe she's at lunch. He was not happy. I could hear it in his voice. But he stayed on the line anyway. So they called the police, I called my husband, who is frantic, and he said he was on his way. Alan was still on the phone with me, Alan. And by the grace of God, my son was off that day. My son-in-law was off that day. My daughter showed up at Home Depot, and the police arrived. My son works for Winnebago County Sheriff's Office as a lieutenant. He works with internet crimes against children, human trafficking, and also with the FBI. When he got there, he grabbed the phone from me, said hello, and they hung up. Honestly, it was all a blur. By the time my kid's husband and multiple police units arrived, I was beyond consolable. There are no words to express my feelings when I figured out that it was a scam. I can't believe it happened to me. I feel I'm an intelligent person, but my mind was just reeling. I'm so embarrassed, feeling inconsolable guilt, and sick to my stomach. I knew right away that I needed to seek therapy for this. And my therapist told me I'm not the only one that's been, I'm sorry. I'm not the only one, in that there's part of your brain that actually disables reasonability, and that they put you in such a panic that you just follow their instructions. That really didn't help me when I saw how upset my husband was and how I had to explain everything to him was a nightmare. Yes, I thought about killing myself because the embarrassment and the guilt was so overwhelming for me to handle. The only reason I decided not to was because of my beautiful grandchildren. I couldn't do that to them. My husband actually gave his guns to my son just in case, because I was not in my right state of mind. My son has a lot of connections, and to date the money is frozen via a warrant. He got the serial number from the Bitcoin machine and worked with DCI, who got some of my money back, and that would be the money that from the Bitcoin machine. I don't think other people are quite as lucky as I. A Bitcoin machine was nothing I had ever heard of. And if I had, this horrific event would never have happened to me. That's why I'm here today, begging for some restrictions and regulations on these machines so this doesn't happen to anybody else. There is absolutely no doubt that there are people out there that are too embarrassed to come forward because they were also scammed. I know some of them have lost their life savings. I didn't want to go public with this until I hopefully got all my money returned. But I will stand tall, and I will help, if I can, those that have either been scammed or about to be scammed. I was also interviewed on Channel 2 News, which was really difficult, as I am also embarrassed for being so vulnerable. I am hoping that if I can help at least one person, it was well worth it. I'm hoping someday to get billboards up to warn others too. And I wonder how many people have committed suicide because of these scams. I ask you to watch the movie The Beekeeper. It sheds light on what's going on out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for being here. Questions from committee members?
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Karen Schmeling. Speaking in favor, on deck will be Janet Zander from the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources. Speaking in favor.
When you're ready, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Senator Bradley and Senator James, members of the committee for hearing my testimony today. I didn't know Beth at all until last October when she testified at our roundtable for financial institution fraud discussion. But I was so impressed with her courage in doing that and for coming back today. The reason I'm here, it's Scott Simon's fault, actually, that I'm here today, because I don't want to refer to myself as a scam victim. I'm a scam survivor. And my scam happened very similar to what happened with Beth. And so I knew, I'm age 71, I'm a longtime Greenfield resident, I'm a retired critical care nurse. I'm very used to responding to emergencies and fixing things quickly when things don't go right. And I'm not intimidated easily by things that don't quite go right. I want to fix them right away. And so I consider myself an intelligent person. I don't think I'm a very worldly person. I certainly didn't know what a crypto kiosk was when this happened to me. I was completely unfamiliar with them. But on a Saturday afternoon, my computer, it wasn't a pop-up really, it was just like the whole screen lit up scarlet and with a siren that was absolutely deafening. I kid you not, it was like a siren in the background, it was deafening. And then it kept saying, your computer's been hacked, call Microsoft immediately, blah, blah, blah. So I think my biggest goal was to just get that siren to quit making me deaf because it was very, very loud. So I thought, okay, I'll call Microsoft, and of course, it unfolded very similar to how it unfolded with Beth. Next, the person who called me was portraying the fraud investigator for my bank, and he didn't ask me for account numbers, passwords, date of birth, gift cards, anything that might have alerted me that something wasn't right. He said, I have your account open right now. I'm looking right at it. And oh my God, there are 2 pending transactions to child porn sites in China, but we've got to stop these. We've got to get your money into a federal safety locker as quickly as possible. So part of my brain was thinking, oh, come on, that can't be actually happening. That's ridiculous. But then the other part of me was thinking, well, what if it is? What if this is real? I just wanted to fix it. And and of course, there's that sense of urgency where it's like, we have to fix this fast. So my family wasn't home. My phone was at my ear. Well, I put it on speakerphone, actually. But the computer, in the meantime, was flashing screens. Looking back, that was my computer obviously being cleaned out by the other scammer who was already into my computer. So popped into the car, drove to my bank. The scammer on the phone portraying the fraud investigator said, okay, when you get to your bank, park your car, leave your phone in the car, because folks will be suspicious if you walk into your bank with a cell phone open. So, and they'll probably try to interfere with what we're trying to do, and we can't let that happen, can we? So you see what's going on here. It's emotional manipulation. And it's the idea that this person on the phone is the only one who can help you. If you follow directions like a good girl, you'll get it fixed. And there's some praise in there for you if you do this as quickly as possible. So I think any of us who are human are capable of being emotionally manipulated, given the right circumstances, the right level of fatigue that you have, the right level of stress that you have, what's being said, who's saying it. I think, in my experience, too, as a critical care nurse, emotional manipulation is very, very possible for any human being. And so it's not a measure, when you're scammed, it's not a measure of your intelligence or your gullibility. It's a measure of the verbiage that's utilized by these scammers to corner you into thinking that they're the only ones who can help you. And so when it happens, it does feel like you're suspended in unreality. that you're going through the motions, that part of your brain is telling you, don't do this, and the other half is going, you're in trouble. Child porn sites in China, we have to fix this. What if this is real? So there's a huge conflict going on. Anyway, I left my phone in the car as directed, went into my bank. All the tellers at the bank know me. Unfortunately, the teller I got that day was a new guy who had just gotten off orientation, did not know me, looked at me kind of funny when I wanted all my checking account contents out in $100 bills, but he gave it to me, and I went back to the car, picked up the phone, and then I was directed to what the guy called a federal safety locker. Well, as we know now, there is no such thing as a federal safety locker. But he did direct me to a neighborhood crypto kiosk. I just remember that it was bright yellow. There may have been warnings on the front saying if anyone is trying to coerce you, blah, 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 don't do it. But when you're cornered like that, you're emotionally blackmailed like that, you have tunnel vision. You just want to fix this. You just want to make it go away. You just want to end the stress. And that's where I felt I was at. So I almost felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, like the sane part of me was watching the crazy part of me act like this lunatic. And that's exactly what I felt like. I went flying into the store where the crypto kiosk was at. And some of the employees just kind of gave me a sideways glance, but no one interfered with me. But yeah, if you're wondering what you look like when you're in this kind of situation, I could picture what I probably look like. My hair was plastered down with perspiration. I was hyperventilating. I was probably paler than I normally am. And I was frantically feeding $100 bills into this bright yellow machine. But nobody interfered. Nobody said anything. They just all kind of looked away. Well, the final $100 bill was one of the older ones, and similar to what we've heard from others before, the machine would not accept it. It kept spitting it back out at me. And then I panicked. I'm like, damn it, take the bill. And I kept trying to feed it back, which didn't work. And then the scammer on the phone said, the machine won't take the bill. Well, don't worry about that. You can just accept that as our gift to you for being so cooperative and helpful. I think we've got this solved. And that's when it hit me. It was like a coconut cream pie right in the face. I'm going, you're okay with giving me my own money back and then it just hit me, and I felt so stupid. And I thought I was going to get sick. I thought my knees were going to buckle. And I didn't let on that I knew now I had been scammed. But I said to the guy, excuse me, I feel like I'm going to be sick. I'll call you right back. And I hung up. Well, I drove home, which wasn't far. Again, this was all stuff in my neighborhood. It was all familiar stuff. I got home. I shut down my computer right away. I called the police. Very nice officer came out, took my report. And she said, don't worry, this happens a lot. You're not stupid. You don't have anything to be ashamed of. Thank you for reporting it. She said many people do not report it. They just are too ashamed. And I now understand that. Eventually, I did talk to Scott Simons, who I kept bugging because I at first wanted to crawl in a hole and die. And that didn't last too long because then I got mad. And I thought, this is happening to other grandmas. We have an actual item in our state that we are handing to scammers on a silver platter for the purpose of terrorizing someone's grandma for 3 hours. For Beth, it was 4 hours. For me, it was 3 hours. I guess I got off a little easy. But imagine people that are too scared to speak up being held on the line in terror for 3 hours. Somebody's grandma. I'm somebody's grandma. I have grandchildren too. But I asked Scott, I said, what more can I do? What more can I do? I can't just sit here. I have to do something. And he directed, well, anyway, that's why I'm here, is in a nutshell, that's why I'm here right now. I don't mind if someone wants to put me in a room full of people that I haven't met yet and hand me a microphone and say, tell us your story. I don't mind that a bit. I'll do it as many times as it takes to get this message across so that people understand how this is being done every single day. And think of all the invisible grandmas and grandpas behind me who are too scared to come forward, or worse yet, they do themselves in because they believe that they've disappointed their families. They've lost their life savings. What a tragedy. These magnificent people. Well, that's why I'm here now. Beth and I are speaking for them. You can't see them, but they're all behind us. And these are the people that we want to stop from having to go through what we went through. I see those crypto guys are gone. I could have clobbered them. I just was so angry at them. I grabbed my umbrella and whack them. What's that? Oh, okay. Well, good. I don't know how they sleep at night. Because honestly, these people have no souls. They are perfectly fine with terrorizing someone for hours and hours and hours just to extract their life savings. Unforgivable. I hope karma is a natural thing for whatever happens to them, because it's a cruel thing that happens. And as we've seen, it happens more often than we realize. And many people never divulge what actually happened to them. And yet they suffer the financial blow that can go with this. So I really appreciate you listening to me today because, again, I am not shy about grabbing a microphone and telling my story anytime, any place, and I'm happy to do it. My goal now, after crawling out of the hole where I wanted to just go in and die, is to spread this message until the right thing is done. And that's what I'll continue to do until the right thing is done. So any questions for me at all? I tend to go on and on if I...
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from members? Go ahead, Senator James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Karen, for being here and being a self-identified scam survivor. I think that's the first thing I recall from when I first met you when we heard this in the assembly. My question is, what has been the disposition or resolution to your case?
Thank you. I forgot that part. Scott was very helpful to me. He said, maybe we can get your money back. He contacted the folks. I could only contact them by email. He was able to get further than I did. And he says, I've got a stack of paperwork here for you. We got to get going, though. There's a deadline. You got to fill all this paperwork out, and you can get a partial refund. And I said, I'm on it. So anyway, I filled out all the paperwork, and it was a lot of detail, just really excruciating detail, copies of the police report, the receipt from the machine, all the stuff that went with it. Some of the paperwork had to be notarized. So I went back to my bank, and they knew what had happened, and they were doing some follow-up education there. But I filled out that entire stack of paperwork, and it was a lot. There was a lot of detail, and everything had to be filled out exactly, or they would not accept it. And we got it in the desired timeline that they spelled out for us, and then we waited and waited and waited. Nothing happened. And finally, Scott says, well, I contacted them, and he goes, I can't believe this. He said, they said you don't qualify for a refund. And I'm like, why? And he said, they said they don't have to tell us why. They can just deny it. And I'm like, what? So he was very upset and on my behalf, and I appreciated that support, but it left me without any other recourse. But I think that when people do try to do that, they try to get a refund, and then it's denied, it feels like getting scammed again. It just feels like you just got scammed again, adding insult to injury. And I'm pretty hardy, so I'm glad I was able to get mad and recover from this and be here today. I can only imagine people who buckle from this. And it's not that they're not strong people, but given, again, the right circumstances, whatever overwhelms you, it's not a measure of how strong you are, it's how powerful whatever it is that is overwhelming you gets you. And that is what happens to many people. I don't want to ever see that happen again, as long as there's breath in my body. So, but thank you for asking that question, and that was the other piece of that.
Additional questions? All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
Up next, we have Janet Zander representing the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, speaking in favor. And then on deck, and our last registered speaker will be Paul Marinen from Blockchain Unmasked, speaking in favor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. When
And
you're
I
ready.
will not waste your time. I'm going to cut to the chase, and you've got my written testimony in front of you. My name is Janet Zander. I am the Advocacy and Public Policy Coordinator for the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, and I support the advocacy and policy work of the Wisconsin Aging Advocacy Network. 5 months ago, I had never heard of crypto kiosks, and I certainly hadn't heard of the fraudulent activity that's taking place on those. Since that time, we have been sharing information with our network, with the professionals, with the older adults, with the family caregivers. As a result of doing that, I have heard from more and more of my colleagues and acquaintances who themselves have been scammed, did not report, who shared that shame and guilt and emotional suffering that you heard today from the survivors of this fraudulent activity. And as they talk to their friends and their neighbors, they hear of even more. These personal accounts underscore what we already have heard today, that the true scope of this problem far exceeds what is officially reported. In a matter of hours, scammers can erase decades of saving that individuals intended for housing, health care, long-term care, financial security. These criminals rely on urgency and intimidation, creating fear to coerce victims into acting quickly and without consultation. On behalf of my agency and the Wisconsin Aging Advocacy Network, we respectfully urge you to support SB 975 and AB 968. We appreciate your time and attention to this growing threat and your leadership in protecting Wisconsin's older adults and vulnerable residents. In addition to scheduling a vote on this quickly, I would encourage all of us to continue to raise awareness of this fraudulent activity, talk to more people, and hopefully someday soon, fewer people will be falling victims to this financial scam. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for your testimony. Questions? All right. Hearing none. Thank you.
Last up, we have Paul Marinen from Blockchain Unmasked, speaking in favor.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. When you're ready, go ahead.
Senator Bradley, members of the committee, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Senate Bill 975 and Assembly Bill 968. Senator James and Representative Schneider, I'd like to commend you for your work to bring this bill to the floor. And I think it's very important for the safety and security of the Wisconsinites that are going to be affected by this. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the testimony of the police and law enforcement professionals that were here today for telling the story of the actual plight of the victims that are here, and particularly the victims like Beth Sewell, Karen Schwelling, and the speaker just before me, to put a face on the actual people that are actually being affected by this on a daily basis. My name is Paul Marinen. I'm the COO of Blockchain Unmasked, and I am a recognized expert in the area of blockchain forensics. I've been working in the field for the last 6 years, and I have a master's in forensic computing and cybercrime investigations. I spent 16 years in the Irish Police Force, where I worked for 12 years in international policing. And because I was seeing a growing number of Bitcoin cases coming across my desk as early as 2013, 2014, I decided to change my career and go to where the crime was actually happening and get involved in this particular industry. Within that, I've been working for a company called TRM Labs. They're one of the industry leaders in this particular space for about 3.5 years, and I was responsible for the cash to crypto industry and analysis of that particular industry. Within my work at TRM Labs, I collected data from over 5,000 locations across the globe, covering over 60 different countries. I'm here to basically mainly to counter the narrative that's been put forward by the industry, as I find it to be aimed at misleading the members of this committee by kind of presenting a kind of just an innovative opportunity to bank the unbanked. That's the famous catchphrase that they present. However, in my view, these virtual currency kiosks are not just harmless tools for financial innovation. They are highly efficient, irreversible mechanisms utilized for the exploitation of vulnerable Wisconsinites. The lack of regulation in the industry is an economic time bomb that enriches transnational criminal organizations while leaving our elderly populations at risk of destitution. And that is also going to negatively impact the economy in years to come, unfortunately. I'd like to also support the views of the Sheriff's Department and Detective Simmons that I'm not anti-crypto. I'm actually very pro the technology that underpins crypto. I think blockchain is very useful technology, particularly for the purposes of enforcing crime and investigating criminal activity and enforcing regulation and compliance. However, the industry has engaged in compliance theater here, and they're presenting misleading statistics that are, if you scratch the surface, not going to stand up to scrutiny. From an economic perspective, the virtual currency kiosk industry is not innovating. They're not changing anything that is happening within the overall crypto ecosystem. They're rent-seeking, and that is something that, coming from Europe, is something that is destroying the economy back in that part of the world, and I don't want to see something like that happen here in the United States. Specifically, I'm going to go through 4 different points that I've seen put forward by the industry, particularly the 1% fraud statistic. I'm responsible for having written a report where a similar statistic was quoted, and I heavily caveated that statistic as flawed if you look at it in its entirety. It is not representative of the total amount of fraud happening in the ecosystem or even in general. From an academic perspective, fraud is known to be, like 85% of fraud is known to be not reported. So all of the figures that are coming out of the IC3 reports and the industry reports are expected to be multiples of the actual that particular volume. So if you take the 333 million that was quoted in the IC3 report, if we extrapolate out that 85% of fraud is not reported, that is actually about $1.6 billion, just specifically to the crypto ATM industry. Also, it's important to look at the 3% as Mr. Turk from CoinFlip presented today. Within context of the overall crypto ecosystem, the entirety of the cash to crypto industry, and not just crypto ATMs, but OTC desks and all of those other services, represent less than 1% of the total crypto economy. So, or actually, it's more likely to be about 0.5%. At which point, if you look at the fact that this particular niche, tiny little sliver of the industry represents 3% of the overall fraud activity, they're punching way above their weight in the amount of activity that is represented in fraud. Over 6 times the amount of activity happens in the cash to crypto industry compared with the rest of the industry in its entirety. The reality on the ground is that 2 states have actually had the opportunity to investigate these activities on a local basis, Iowa and the state of Washington, D.C., the District of Washington, D.C., and they've found that over 90% of the activity happening in their areas is linked to fraud and scams. without doubt, if you look at it here in Wisconsin and you had open books on the industry, you would find something similar. When you're looking at that 1% figure, there's an accuracy trap within the actual reports that are presenting it. The industry of TRM and Chainalysis and these companies that are actually reporting have to report the known knowns. They can't guess, or they can't afford to have, on the balance of probability, this is most likely a fraud. They can't report that in any of their reports. So they have to actually have had sight of an actual fraudulent address and tie it to an actual criminal that's engaged in fraudulent activity before they can touch anything. These scams happen online, get spun up on a 3 to 6 month basis, and say an investment fraud will have a website for 3 to 6 months, scam a lot of people, and then they'll rip down the website and move on to the next thing. And if the threat intelligence agents that are actually looking at those don't catch that within that 3 month period, there's a good chance that that never gets reported or actually attributed within these tools. That's one part of the actual issue. Within the data science models that they publish, there's also the requirement to actually make sure that the AI gets it right. And there's research out of Holland or the Netherlands that points to Chainalysis' data being 99.86% accurate. In other words, they have to actually be almost 100% sure of exactly what they're looking at before they actually put it into their tool, and then as a result rely on it in their reports. What that same research pointed to is, with one ground truth data set, Chainalysis only was able to identify 25% of that data set. So the data that they actually were attributing was 100%, almost 100% accurate. But the known unknowns that they weren't attributing was 75% of that data set. So they're missing large portions because of that, as I describe it in my report, the accuracy trap, where because these tools or these services are trying to outsource their compliance decisions to third-party services, they're willfully ignoring all of the other red flags that are right there in front of them. There's obviously, onto the second point, there's obviously the illusion of compliance and ineffective warnings. From my own research, I've seen across the 5,000 locations I've collected data on, every single one of those locations in every country across the globe had a fraud warning. That has done nothing to stop fraud in the industry. I've seen one anecdotal report that somebody put an individual sign on top of a kiosk and it dropped by 90%. There's no individual victim or potential victim that has ever reported that they saw a sign and they didn't actually go through with the thing. To Ms. Schmelling's point, once you're actually at the kiosk, there's very little, the psychological pressure on you to go through with that transaction completely blanks over everything that you're being presented with. And the fact that one particular kind of prominent player in the space has a 47 or 48-page terms and conditions that they expect their customers to be accountable to, in a situation where they're at the kiosk for less than 3 or 4 minutes before they actually start funneling in funds, is farcical. There's no way in the world any customer has gone through that 48-page document and was aware of what they're signing up for. So even the opt-in, it's like terms and conditions on your iPhone. You're generally not, you're just ticking the box and moving on to keep going. Another point is that the points of vulnerability at the actual point of sale. the fact that they rely on third-party services to actually make the decision for them ignores the fact that there's a lot of red flags, such as single-use wallets, a particular customer using 15 or 20 different wallets, 3 or 4 different customers using the same wallet. All of these things indicate that the terms and conditions that they have themselves written and are expected to hold these customers to are not being held within their own compliance checks and balances. There's obviously no real-time silver bullet to protect consumers, but at the same time, operators are ignoring all of the actual known transaction red flags that are out there and are not building robust compliance. To my point earlier, it's compliance theatre. There's no actual attempt to actually do something about this. And actually, Mr. Turk even alluded to it in his own evidence that obviously he makes the point that if you impose transaction limits, that the SAR filings won't be actually filed, and that's going to negatively impact the whole ecosystem. There's nothing stopping them from filing a $500 SAR. If they're genuinely serious about suspicious activity and filing suspicious activity reports, you can file under the federal limits. And if you're genuinely serious about actually catching criminals and protecting your consumers, then you actually build a proper compliance structure. Don't rely on third-party solutions to actually do it for you. And even if you do use their risk engines to actually put these checks and balances in place. To his point about potentially being scammed, that's a genuine concern for the whole industry. I appreciate that he called that out. But the important thing for them to be aware of, the best way for the cryptocurrency ATM companies to make sure that they don't get scammed is to make sure that their customers don't get scammed. If they do that, nobody's going to be coming back looking for their money, because they won't be getting defrauded. They won't be getting scammed in the first place. And they can say, well, look, we've got all the checks and balances in place. There's absolutely no way that you could possibly have gotten scammed here, because we are doing our job right. With that in mind, there is actually a very obvious point that is raised by the federal reports on the activity of predatory inclusion across the ecosystem. One of the data sets that we've had the opportunity to look at with blockchain en masse indicates that about 60% of users within one of the largest operators in the ecosystem are over 60 years of age. That cohort of individuals is not considered to be crypto native. And the evidence that's given by all of the victims that were here today, they all indicated that none of them were going to the kiosk thinking that they were buying cryptocurrency. None of them actually believed that they're actually using these kiosks to purchase cryptocurrency. And anyone over 60 years of age, with the very obvious minor exception of a handful of people, are actually going and using these kiosks for economic purpose other than paying their scammers. That focus on the providing access to these individuals is an activity of predatory inclusion, and there's literally no evidence to show that there's a sizable portion of the industry that is unbanked cohort. Again, it's not statistically supported by any evidence across the industry. From my own analysis, less than 30% of the actual users in one data set were responsible for over 95% of the volume. So the top 33% of people are being victimized at these kiosks. There are probably users that are going on and placing a few bets here and there. Actually, ironically, my Lyft driver on the way over here told me that he uses crypto ATMs to avoid Wisconsin's gambling restrictions. So there are people that are using them. But what you got, again, it's not for a legitimate purpose, and it's not in significantly large amounts to the point where they're driving the economy of the crypto ATM industry. For my own analysis, I did internal research when I was at TRM, where we looked at the exposure to crypto ATMs as a risk indicator in itself. Just not whether or not it was a scam or not, just has an address engaged with a crypto ATM in one way or another. We looked at any address that had received 20 or more transactions from 3 or more different crypto ATMs. And the addresses, we identified 12,000 addresses that were responsible for $24 billion in volume. Within that, we were able to focus on 4,500 addresses that came to one exchange. And thankfully, I was able to get a director at that exchange to take a look at those 4,500 addresses. Again, this is straight from an ATM to an exchange. This was about 2023. That 4,500 addresses were responsible for $10 billion of that $24 billion. And when they looked at the addresses, they called me back the following week, set up a call, and they said, "Where did you get all these scam addresses?" I said, "Well, they're not scam addresses. They're addresses that have exposure to crypto ATMs." They said that already out of that 4,500 addresses, 1,700 of them had already been subject to law enforcement subpoena, and 97% of them were owned by or operated by people from Nigeria or Ghana, or from the West African region, with 95% of them being owned or operated by individuals in Nigeria. Again, within any data set, that is an unusually high concentration of individuals from any one particular geographic region, particularly when you take into account that there are 0 crypto ATMs in Ghana or Nigeria. And all of the funds were coming from Western countries: Europe, North America, Australia. Again, this is a transaction monitoring pattern that I have written about since 2022. It is out there in the public for anyone that wants to actually implement it as a transaction monitoring consideration. And from what I can see across the industry, nothing is being done outside of the actual certain companies like Digital Mint or CoinSource or Margo, who are no longer in the industry because they know they can't make money out of it. There is no financial benefit to the actual industry. On the fees and transaction limits and misaligned financial incentives, the SAR loophole is fiction. Like there's, to my point earlier, there's nothing stopping them from filing under the actual federal limits. The source of the funds that are actually making companies like publicly traded companies like Bitcoin Depot a lot of money is subsidized victimization. They are making money off of victims, and they know that they're making money off of victims, and they can't afford to actually have regulation that will help victims or compliance programs that will help victims, because that will be bad for their bottom line. Again, the false equivalency is that Bitcoin is some form of gold. That is, again, not, it's comparing apples with oranges. Like, gold does not move at the speed of the internet. Gold, you can take it back if somebody is there. You can get police and they can actually take the gold back off the person. It's a lot easier to reverse the transaction. And again, there's no statistically supported business model. The industry has given anecdotal evidence that it's used for cash economy. Again, that's not supported by the data. Again, I think I've made it very clear my own perspective on this bill. I commend Wisconsin for putting such a strong bill forward, and I would like to support the proposal of this bill going forward.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Questions from members? Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question I have for you, sir, and thank you for being here and providing this data. What years did CoinSource and Digital Mint withdraw from the U.S. market?
Digital Mint, if I'm not mistaken, is 2023 or 2024. And ironically, CoinSource withdrew quietly from the industry shortly after trying to set up an industry group called the Cryptocurrency Compliance Cooperative, headed by Digital Mint and CoinSource, where they tried to actually bring in standards for this industry. And they had 18 different companies contribute, including blockchain forensics companies like my own. I was the member from TRM on that group, but there was only 2 companies from the actual cryptocurrency or from the crypto ATM industry involved, and neither of them are actually still in the industry because they both knew they couldn't do anything to actually implement standards. There was no appetite for it across the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. You want to go ahead and read out the registration?
Absolutely. Registered in support of SB 975 is Dave Groshek, representing the Wisconsin Credit Union League. And then registered in favor additionally is Representative John Spiros of the 85th Assembly District. And then registered against is Mike Gesselhart of Bitcoin Depot. And then Susie Scoof, representing Cash Depot, is also registered against SB 975. And then we had one additional registration come in favor for SB 951 from Calvin A. Lee of the city of Milwaukee.
All right. Well, that concludes our public hearing today and all business before the committee. We will follow up with members regarding next steps on any of the bills that have been heard recently, as well as any other legislation before the committee before the end of session. We are adjourned.
You have been watching a production of Wisconsin Eye, your unfiltered window into legislative deliberations and public policy programming, where our mission is to provide Wisconsinites an opportunity to access the legislative process and connect with conversations that inform our citizenry. Please consider supporting our mission, and thank you for watching. Wisconsin Eye, policy made public.
Democracy demands sunshine, clarity, openness, and truth to light the way forward. Wisconsin Eye is the clear sky where transparency and access help democracy breathe freely. But we need your support to keep the skies bright. This is a critical moment. Support us now, or the clouds may obscure the future of open governance. Donate to wisi.org/donate or text WISI to 44321.